Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 17 of the Intermission podcast, the show where two film students discuss classic, iconic, and obscure films from times gone by. We're your host, Oscar W. Fitchett.
Robbie Tweedo is also here. Hello.
What an absolute pro introduction that was. God. And
incredible stuff.
Leading into the intro with this, episode 17, I've got two things I want to say. First of all, what I've realized is this time next year, well, less than a year, we're going to have to change the tagline of the podcast, Robbie.
Yeah, because we're not film students anymore.
We won't be film students in like literally a year's time.
We'll be film graduates.
Film school graduates. Yeah. There you go.
Or, I don't know. Depends on what we do.
I'll wait till we start actually earning a living before we go and we're two filmmakers. Discuss classic.
When we're earning a living, can we do it where it's just like we claim to be whatever we're earning a living for?
Yeah.
If I end up working at a coffee shop for a bit or something.
It's like the two of us, we're two baristas.
Yeah,
discuss classic, iconic, and obscure films from times gone by. Because, of course,
fuck it.
It's like, wow, they went from being film students to being like Tesco checkout.
Yeah.
What a fall from grace.
Oh, Christ.
And then
we're your least favorite neighbor and his friend.
When two unemployed bastards.
Two societal leeches discuss
classic, iconic, obscure films from times gone by, of course. And another thing is, this is the closest we've ever come to being to the actual show deadline in terms of recording it, and it's been terrible.
Yeah.
No fault of anyone whatsoever.
It's been my fault specifically.
Well, it hasn't really been a fault of yours.
Oh, no,
control.
No, I've been horrifically ill.
Yeah. I know this is everyone's favorite part of the podcast when we go through our scheduling discussion actually on an episode, but you know, it's fun to talk about sometimes where
everyone's favorite section of the show. Why hadn't we recorded this episode later? What did Robbie do?
Where we thought we were going to be well planned into it all. We're like, right, I forgot the date. Don't worry about it. It's like
we did 2 episodes this week.
Yeah, we were like, we're going to get episode 17 done on the Thursday, and on the Friday we'll get episode 18 done. We'll be like 2 weeks ahead of the curve, mate. And then I was like, and then Robbie fell very ill.
I felt severely ill. I say severely ill. I had diarrhea for like 6 days.
It was severe enough to postpone the podcast.
I've lost 9 pounds.
I'm not surprised.
It's awful.
I'm genuinely not surprised from what I've heard.
Like, I went to have a shower this morning. I look like a fucking ghoul. It's awful.
Yeah, you'll put it back on. Don't worry.
I'm fine now.
Good on you. There's not much bullshitting more to talk about as such. So I guess let's not waste any time. We wasted enough time last week with Vertigo, where that was like 14 minutes of an intro, Robbie.
Yes.
So we'll waste no more time. We'll get right into this episode. But before I do, I want to warn people once again, if you're new to this, we discuss spoilers within these film discussions. So if you have not seen the following film, or you don't care about spoilers, leave, come back after you've seen the film. And the film we are discussing, Robbie, on this week's episode is the 2001 fantasy anime film Spirited Away, which is directed by Hayao Miyazaki, written by Hayao Miyazaki, starring, hang on a minute,
Go on.
Rumi Hiragi, Miyu Irino, Mari Natsuki, Yumi Tamai, Bunta Sugawara, Takashi Naito, and Yasuko Sawaguchi. However, if you were watching the English dub of this, you would hear the English voice cast of Davey Chase, Jason Marsden, Suzanne Pleshette, Suzanne Egan, David Ogen Steers, Lauren Holly and Michael Chiklis, and also John Ratzenberger was in the English voice dub as well.
Michael Chiklis.
Yeah, he's the dad. He's the English voice of the dad.
Didn't realize that at all.
And the plot synopsis
Did not quite right at all.
And the plot synopsis of Spirited Away, according to IMDb, is during her family's move to the suburbs, a sullen 10-year-old girl wanders into a world ruled by gods, witches, and spirits, and where humans are changed into beasts. Accolades that the film holds is that it has a 97% on the tomato meter and an audience score of 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. It holds an 8.6 out of 10 on IMDb, placing it at number 27 in their top 250 films of all time. And it has a score of 4.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, placing it at number 10 in their top 250 films of all time. It was nominated for 1 Caesar Award for Best Foreign Film, the Caesar Award being the big awards in France. It won 2 Japanese Academy Awards, including Best Song for Always With Me by Yumi Kimura, and also Best Film. It was nominated for 3 Saturn Awards, the Saturn Awards being the awards ceremony celebrating sci-fi, horror, and fantasy films. Nominated for 3 of those, including Best Music for Joe Hisaishi and Best Writing for Hayao Miyazaki, and won 1 Saturn Award for Best Animated Film. It was nominated for 1 BAFTA Award for Best Film Not in the English Language. It won 4 Annie Awards, the award show for the animated films, for outstanding writing, outstanding music, outstanding directing, and outstanding achievement in an animated theatrical feature. So it won a load of good ones at the animations, and it was nominated and won 1 Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. I believe the only anime film to win at the Oscars, if my memory does serve me correctly. And so my relationship with Spirited Away, and also encapsulated by Studio Ghibli, is I as you can tell by the shirt if you're watching the YouTube, I do like me some Studio Ghibli. Quite a big fan of the company. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily an aficionado of Studio Ghibli. I've still yet to see quite a few of their acclaimed films, and it's not like I've watched their films loads of times. Like a lot of them I've only seen once, maybe twice. So I may not be one of these ones who are a really big fan of the company, but I would say I am a big fan in the sense of like mostly all their films I have really enjoyed, and I do hold them quite highly in terms of animation in regards. And in terms of Spirited Away, I've seen it 3 times now. And I personally, I do love the film a lot. It's a film that when I first watched it, it was quite an intimidating feat going into it, because this was not my first Ghibli film at all. And going into it, I heard so much about it. It's like the very first thing I ever heard about this film was like, oh, it's the best animated film ever. I didn't even hear what it was about. I just heard someone go, like, I just heard people go, oh, Spirited Away, the greatest animated film of all time. I'm like, what? Okay. So it was a very intimidating thing going into it. And we'll get more into it, obviously. But first time I watched it, it's not at all what I expected it to be. And it's a film that I do think has benefited from watching it again. So, Robbie, what is your relationship with Spirited Away and or Ghibli as a whole?
Okay, this is specifically speaking about Spirited Away. This is the first time I've ever seen this movie. I watched it this morning. It was so that's the first time I've seen that one. In terms of other Ghibli stuff, the only other thing I've ever seen is Totoro, and I didn't care for it very much. I apologize. I fell asleep watching it. It just didn't really connect with me, and I hate to say it because it's the same as you, where you're saying like all you've ever heard of it is, oh, it's the best it's just the best animated film of all time. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so masterful. It's so beautiful and magical, and what a feeling, or whatever. Not for me. I'm so sorry. Generally speaking, I mean, I'll get onto it more as I go through like my actual notes and stuff. But generally speaking, animation wise, and the way it looks and the way it's put together and the actual feeling of it and the vibe and everything. Great, really like it. I really like how like adventurous and magical and stuff it feels. The actual content was where none of it connects for me.
Right.
Personally, I don't feel anything watching it. But yeah.
Fair. Yeah,
It's interesting.
Yeah. It is because it's again we're tackling this because obviously the category Robbie chose when we were trying to pick these films. Robbie picked animation. And I was like, well, Spirited Away, because I just thought it was, again, we're trying to. I think within the Intermission podcast, we're trying to tackle films that are known as the fucking pop filter. Man, settle down, would you? Jesus Christ. That was
We're trying to discuss films that are the fucking pop filter, man.
That was a genuine assault by me pop filter there. Fuck me. We're trying to discuss films that are like considered the best of something. Yeah. That's why the very first episode we discussed The Godfather. That's why like the first episode of the second season we discussed Citizen Kane, and the first episode of this season we discussed Vertigo. So, and we have this is the very first animated film we've discussed as well within the Intermission. Yes, I think obviously we discussed Soul in our top 10 films, but that's the closest I think we've come to like
doing a dedicated episode. This is the first animation we've ever done.
And this is also the first like film we've discussed that has been released in the 21st century. Like we usually discuss films that have only been 20th. This is the very first time we've I mean, it's 2001, so it's only just, but it's 20 years old now, like from this year. And I kind of want to, because I listen back to the Vertigo episode, and I feel like the way I obviously discussed there, I was like less than 24 hours removed from my second jab, and we were and I feel like we were a bit rusty going into it. Being the first time. So I kind of want to and I enjoyed the one that we did more so about Seven Samurai, where we just kind of bullshit about each specific thing. Even though I've got plentiful of notes, I'll use them more so as guidelines. Because again, the very first note I written about this film was honestly, I might not make many notes for this one. Just kind of want to sit back, enjoy it, and be comfortably immersed in the world. Because I
haven't got a lot of notes for this.
Because I feel like, especially, we'll go off my notes as guidelines, and then you can chime in turn. We'll go off them and just discuss it through that way. Because as well, I think, especially with this film, there is a lot to break down into it. But I also think a lot of the film, it kind of needs to just be enjoyed and not analyzed. Yeah. I mean, that's rich for us saying this now because we're about to fucking analyze the film. But yeah, because I mean, I put like the very beginning of the film is so incredibly captures the sense of being a child, like right off the bat, I think.
Yeah.
Because the very first thing we see is just like Chichiro is in the car, just completely just exhausted from a long car journey. And we've all been there. We've all been there with anything, whether it be a move or like, we're going to go out of town to a shopping center. And you're like an 8-year-old or like a 10-year-old. You're like, I can't be fucked with this.
Nothing is more boring than a car.
No.
When you're a car, nothing is more boring than a car.
And especially someone who gets car sick in the back seat quite easily. So it's not fun. But I think as well, that's another thing I like about the film in the sense of like, we're right into it. Like, I love how there's no thing of like, they're packing the house, they're selling the house, they're packing everything up in the car. Thank you for telling me my connection's unstable, Zoom. But
Thanks.
But there's no fluff in terms of setting things up. I don't.
No, you're straight into stuff, and I appreciated that. I appreciate that you kind of straight into a full scene that just shows kind of the family dynamic and how all the characters kind of play and operate within that space, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like that.
And also,
but her parents are bad parents. Like,
I have an interesting thing to say because I'll say because I did you watch the English dub for this one?
Yeah.
Which with Ghibli films I'm usually okay with. Like that's like a dub. That's because that's usually a debate within the anime community where it's like subs are dubs. You're a heathen if you like dubs, or like
I've heard this. Actually, I don't. This is the thing. I've never watched anime before ever.
that's a good point. Yes, that's another thing we need to say. Our relationship with anime is also incredibly different because although although you are a big animation fan, like you like animation, I grew up with anime, and I
I've never seen any ever. Like the closest I've ever come is probably I probably saw a couple of episodes of Pokemon when I was a kid. But that's basically it.
Penny Parker and Spider-Verse.
Penny Parker and Spider-Verse was my introduction to anime.
But so that's another big. But that's an inch because I the first time I watched this, I watched the dub. Second time I watched this, which was last week, I watched the Japanese version of this. And I also watched it again yesterday. And what I did this time, the YouTube channel Cinefix, they've got a commentary on their YouTube channel of where they watched Spirited Away. They watched the English dubbed, but they had Kenny Omega on, watching it with him because he's a massive weeb. He's a big anime guy. Yeah. So, but what's interesting, you're about the parents being bad parents, which to us, yes, they are. But and that point got brought up in that commentary. And what was interesting is Kenny Omega, who lived in Japan for the better half like 10 years because he wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he said like that is just kind of very that is very normal of parents and the parent mentality in Japan, which I find interesting. Like how they are, and so it's weird because again, I think especially interested in watching it from an English dubbed point of view. And obviously with animation not being very like obviously it's like the ethnicity of people in animation is a lot more not like
it's more ambiguous.
As opposed to live action. But obviously this is a Japanese made film, and obviously they're meant to be drawn as Japanese people, and of course it was originally voiced in the Japanese language. So so watching it from the Japanese voice, the original Japanese voice, I didn't find that as noticeable as I did the dub.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what it was because I felt like I guess I was because this is a very Japanese film as well. Even if you look at like the setting and just because there's a lot of anime where it could be a bit like neutral in terms of where we are in terms of like there's a lot of like cyberpunk stuff like Ghost in the Shell, it's just a sci-fi world, so this could just be this like Blade Runner or whatever, but with this is very Japanese, I think. So
it's like down to the architecture and stuff of the building and the designs of everything.
And I didn't expect going into this film to like obviously for like the second time, like from my memory, I didn't expect this to be so Japanese in its culture and everything, which I found a lot, really. I mean, you can see like by just simple screenshots of the films, like, oh yeah, that's very Japanese. I mean, you can even look at the background I'm on right now. You look at the bridge and the exterior. It's just
like buildings in the background and everything. It's just,
I've got here Joe Hisashi might be the king of the whimsical score. It's just full of wonder and innocence. Like
the music in this movie is very cool. I was a very big fan of that. That was probably a standout for me for the whole thing, apart from like the visuals, because it does look very nice.
It's a beautiful combination, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
like it's and it's he does the score for most of Ghibli films. Like he hasn't done all of them, but he knows, because they all have a whimsy to them. And of course, with this film is very much so childlike fantasy. This is a childlike fantasy film. I've heard people compare this to like Labyrinth in the way of like
all I've ever heard about it for like the last week, every time I've mentioned it to Julia or around Julia's cousins, all I've been told is, it's like the Japanese Alice in Wonderland.
Yes, yeah.
It kind of is. I get what they mean.
Yeah. So he can have a score like that is very much so like you can just hear like that's another thing. The opening, they didn't even need to say anything. And we just look at the visuals, we can hear the score, and we're like, this is going to be a wondrous fantasy film.
Yes.
Which
before anything weird even happens.
Yeah, but also he's such an adaptable composer because he can do another film like Princess Mononoke, which is another Hayao Miyazaki Ghibli film, which is more based in, it's a fantasy film, but it's more like feudal Japan based thing.
Okay.
Like so, and that does a wonderful job at being an almost epic samurai almost. So
yeah,
it still brings whimsy and wonder, but also really adapted to the specific genre of the film. I think, and I think
it does a lot for the world building for me.
Like
in terms of like creating the world of the fantastical elements of it and everything. I haven't seen anything quite like that where the music actually adds to the world. You like, the first thing that comes to mind is like Black Panther, I guess. Like the score for that movie kind of draws you into the world of it.
Yeah,
I feel it had the same sort of effect. This one for me.
Yeah, which I want to discuss world building a bit later because I think that's a very interesting topic to talk about within this. And another bit I've got here, of course, this is just this is within the opening, but this is also just the general, the technical side of the film as a whole. I've just got you can't beat a bit of hand draw animation. I'm at the point where Chihiro and her parents have just left the car and are entering through the tunnel, and the film refuses to skip by the environment, holding a shot on multiple items in one location so we can truly capture the beauty of where we're at. First of all, hand-drawn animation. Yeah. We'll talk about that specifically. This is a film that came out in 2001.
Yeah.
The exact same year as Monsters, Inc. And I believe also the exact same year as the first Shrek. Yes. And I love Monsters, Inc. Love it. Shrek I'm a bit indifferent on. But
what?
I'm a bit different on Shrek. It's fine. It's okay. It's an okay film. It's okay. But I think with that, obviously, but I think both of these films are like if you compare them, we go Monsters, Inc. and like Spirited Away, two different animation styles. Monsters, Inc. you can, I still think it holds up animation wise, but you can tell it's from like
like, stuff with like the fair and stuff.
Like computer generated imagery's forever going to be dated. Like we're going to be like, wow, that's amazing when we see it for the first time when it comes out. But then you give it like years later and it's like, that's a bit that looks a bit like of the time. Whereas I think with the hand-drawn animation, you've got a timeless quality to it. There's a reason why people still show their kids like old Disney films. There's a reason why films like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from the 30s still get shown, because it's still got, you can tell it's an old film, but I think that's more so from like the audio quality than the visual quality, maybe.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I think
there's a reason that people still show their kids Lion King.
Yeah.
Even though it's not very good.
Okay.
Boom, it's out there.
I mean, I threw Shrek there and then you threw down Lion King.
That's me clapping back about Shrek. Lion King's not very good, all right there. I said it.
But I think as well with this, like you can show Spirited Away, and I think it also helps within the time or like the environment that it is set, because it's not like, because there's some anime, again, I'm going to say Ghost in the Shell, where that's like a futuristic film, but that came out in 1995. So the future is always going to seem somewhat like dated in the sense like, oh, that's the 1990s look at the future.
Yeah. It's what people from the era imagined that the future would look like. It's like Back to the Future 2.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Whereas like a film like this, it's not set in a time that we know.
No.
Even like before we go into the other world, all we know is that we see cars, which they look like they could be any time, and clothing, but the clothing is very like, again, it's just basic. It's
generic enough that you don't really think about it.
Yeah, so it's like you can be like, Spirited Away, this was made in the 60s, and someone could be like, oh, okay, yeah. Or like you can be this film came out last week, and you'd be like, oh yeah. Like And
Yeah.
I think that also helps with the hand-drawn animation of it, which I do want to say, which is
Mm.
mostly done by Hayao Miyazaki himself.
Really?
He draws his own shit. Yeah, like
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
yeah, and we'll get more about it in the trivia section with him because there is a lot of interesting stuff about him and his creative process in there. But
Yeah.
he is obviously you hear about people with animation teams, and he does have a team, obviously, with a film this size. But
he couldn't have just done everything on his own.
Yeah, but there's something quite like inherently auteurship almost about hand-drawn animation in the sense that this guy directed it, he wrote it, and he's drawing it. That's almost the equivalent of like if someone's writing, editing, directing, shooting the film. Like it's almost like a Charlie Chaplin way of how Chaplin used to do his stuff.
Yeah, because that's the equivalent. I mean, like that's one thing that I like about animation is that you can do anything, particularly hand-drawn animation. I mean, any form of animation really, but everything that's there is designed and made by whoever's making the film, and so it can literally be anything. So the fact that he's got that much control over it, even to do the drawings himself, that's like kind of the most pure version of someone's vision that you could get.
Yeah.
Which is quite cool. Which is when animation falls flat for me, when you get something like Illumination or something like that, where they're not doing anything that you couldn't just do in live action.
Yes, yeah.
Like when an animation film and I'm watching it, I'm going, there's no reason for this to be animated other than it's cheaper to do animation than it is to film it live action. And it's like, well, why? What's the point? Come on.
Yeah, no, it's animation can be very lazy these days, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But then there's so many like beautiful examples of like why we kind of love animation. Like, because even people like, I don't like animation. Bullshit, you do because you grew up on it. Mm-hmm. Like, quite frankly, you do. You're just trying to be like,
you're just trying to be edgy.
That's for children. Fuck off.
Yeah. No, it's not.
And again, the beauty about this as well, because I think as well, if this was in 3D animate, if this was 3D, say this was done in 3D, I think some of the creatures or some of the spirits in these films would come off less charming or wondrous and come off more horrific. Like, look at like the spirit behind that you've got as your background. Imagine if that thing was 3D.
Yeah, the radish dude.
Yeah, the radish spirit. Imagine if that was 3D.
Imagine if the witch was 3D. It'd
be awful. It'd be like
like just the worst thing I've ever seen.
So the animation still can give a sense of horror.
Yeah.
But without being grotesque, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think it adds a lot of charm to it. Having that timeless quality adds a hell of a lot of charm. Which was one of the notes that I made actually was where is it? This is very charming, but I have no fucking idea what's going on.
Yeah.
It was one of my first notes, but then it's kind of like I'm enjoying it because everyone seems nice. You know?
Yeah. And the other bit of that note, I said, like, I love how, like, again, when Chihiro and her parents are walking through the tunnel for the first time, Miyazaki chooses to like linger on just objects in the environment.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, that's going to be important to the story. It's like, there's a chair.
I think it helps. It helped for me anyway to put myself in her perspective, because often when it does it, it's when the main character's running past something, or when they're driving past something in the car, or later on when they're on the train. It like goes. It's like a POV shot sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of freezes on that one thing, and you watch it.
Yeah, I've noticed as well that is quite a theme in a lot of Japanese specific films, not just Asian films, because like Chinese films don't really do this, and even Korean films don't really do this, where like a lot of Japanese filmmakers allow us to like just see what's around us and almost take like a meditative type of state of like even if it's like a singular raindrop in a puddle, it's almost like if you were to, like, obviously I go, we both enjoy our walks in our respective hometowns, both different environments, obviously, as well. But like, I like obviously walking by the seafront and then just stand or like just sitting on a rock for a bit and just kind of watching the waves on the beach, just kind of like come in and out.
Yeah.
If no other reason, just for me just to sit there for a bit
Mm.
and just chill.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so, and especially in animation, animation's usually, especially children's animation, which is what this is.
Mm.
It's almost treated as like a thing to like, this is a big, bright, colorful thing to distract your children. And it doesn't give you time just to like, it's just constant. Whereas like this is like, there's enough imagery to where it's like, oh, that's fascinating. But like, oh, let me look at that for a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It takes time to have a moment.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you know, a kid's animation where like nowadays where it's just, look, this little yellow dude, he's hit himself into a wall or whatever.
Yeah, and he's just got a blip, 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 banana. All right, we get it.
Stop it, come on.
Get it. But like it's quite quiet. Like the film is like, I think that's a good word that I would use to describe Spirited Away. It's quiet.
It's quaint.
Yes.
It's a quaint little film.
Yeah. And here I go. I got here we go. Food in a Ghibli film. I'm probably gonna be well hungry by the end of this because, again, this being very early in any sort of Ghibli adventure that you're going on, if you are even going to go on a Ghibli adventure at all, but this being very like new to you, Ghibli films have probably the best food scenes in any film ever.
Right. Okay.
And it's if I say that just to someone randomly, it's gonna sound weird. You're gonna be like, what do you mean the best food scenes? What do you mean? But it's like I can't quite describe this moment. Like I also watched Ponyo not long ago, which is another Hayao Miyazaki film from 2009. And there's just like a moment where in that film, Ponyo, who's like, it's going to sound really weird if I just simply say it, but Ponyo is like a little fish who then became a girl. It's Studio Ghibli's Little Mermaid. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
But so like this little girl called Ponyo goes and like makes friends with this little boy, lives like on a lighthouse type of thing.
Right.
And the mother, and there's a moment where like Ponyo just lives with them for a bit because there's a big storm and shit. And then the mother just makes Ponyo food, like makes Ponyo and her son food. And it's like, you get this really detailed shot of her making ramen. And it's really satisfying. And the way the food's animated, it looks so appetizing. Again, hand drawn, but like you see like the steam and almost the vapors like in there and like the bubbles of like in the water. And like when they pick up the noodles with the chopsticks, you almost see each individual noodle like in it. And it's like, oh, that looks so appetizing.
That, again, that's the level of detail when they're doing animation, they can just like do every fine detail to whatever extent that they want to.
Yeah. And especially in this film, I don't think it's Ghibli's most appetizing food scenes, but
no,
I'm not gonna lie, my mouth did water a bit when they just start like harking down on that and like just meat and shit, like and fish and that.
When the parents are doing it,
yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
It did make me go, God, I wish I could just go to like a buffet right now and just let me just get all that shit there, and then just nom down that. But like even like the little things, like again, we'll maybe get to where like Chihiro is just eating like an onigiri, like a rice ball thing.
Yeah. Like
even again, rice. A lot of people are like, oh, it's appetizing about rice, but it's
when you've. This is gonna. Do you want me to sound like the most basic man alive?
Go for it.
When you've been to Wagamama's, right? And you know the sticky rice balls.
Oh, you're damn right I do.
Oh my God, it's the greatest thing you ever put in your mouth.
Oh mate, you're damn right it is. Yeah.
Incredible. I never got Wagamama's, and then I went and I had a katsu curry, and it changed my life.
It's it's one of the best things, isn't it?
It's the best thing. It's the best food.
That was another early discussion of ours within like enrollment day, where we argued whether Wagamama's was good or not, and you went, it's shit. I went, how dare you?
I hadn't done it properly. I went with my sister and she recommended something because I didn't know what anything was. It was terrible. I hated it. Yeah. And I went with Dina and she was like, oh, if you don't know what to get, just get a katsu curry. It's like the one that everyone really likes.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I tried that. Oh my God, life changing.
Yeah.
I'm glad that happened early in our relationship. I think the serotonin from that katsu curry has kept that relationship alive for the
Oh,
last
it's
two.
great. I've got £20 gift card I need to fucking use up that I should have used, but then the pandemic hit.
Oh my
But
god.
so one
Where's
day.
our nearest one in uni, by the way?
Where's the what?
Where's our nearest one? Is it Newcastle?
It's Newcastle, my man.
Oof.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth it, but like,
I mean, you do other things in Newcastle. You don't just go
yeah.
just for Wagamamas. I mean, Wagamamas survive in Hartlepool. I'm just saying that now.
Right. It's too nice for Hartlepool. Hartlepool doesn't deserve that.
Yeah, it is. But what I also found, but in terms about the food, because this is always a thing that I always got really confused at, like in the sense of like when I first watched it, when the parents turn into pigs. Right.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about that? Like just, and then I can go.
I have a couple of things to say. A, they deserve it wholeheartedly. Just because, like, why is scanning that much? Calm down. Like, I don't know. I was like, when they first started eating stuff, I was like, you shouldn't be doing that anyway, because he's literally just said himself that it's an abandoned theme park. Why would there be freshly cooked food out? What are you doing? Don't eat that. And then they kept eating it and kept going and let their daughter just wander off. So I was like, you know what? You deserve it. You deserve to be a pig. And then later on in the film, when they're going and they're like, oh, you know, which pig's my parents or whatever. And I'm like, well, earlier on, when your dad was a pig, he had a little mohawk. Like, they still both had their haircuts, but they were just on pigs. But then none of those pigs had the haircuts later on. So I'm like, well, none of them are your parents. You know that because they don't have their haircuts. I don't know.
But
this is where I started to get annoyed with this movie because it's just things that happen.
Which just would be an interesting. This is going to be an interesting conversation to have later on. But one thing because again through watching the Cinefix commentary, it was then said that apparently, like, obviously it's not really subtle symbolism in the sense like you eat, you become pigs, greed, all that stuff. This came in like, I think there was like a financial boom in Japan in the 80s. Okay. Where they were doing wonders in terms of like the economy and everything. Right. I can't remember specifics. I don't know modern Japanese history very well, so excuse me. But within the 90s, they were coming off more of like a downfall in that. And then people were more so obsessed with the greed side of things. And of course, food being like a necessity for survival and people needing that thing. So I think it was more so a thing of like this being an outright like visual representation of like just a very like just greedy mentality. Yeah. Turning the pigs and that. At the time. Yeah, from my understanding, I need to look more into that. But that was mentioned in the Cinefix commentary. I would be interested in learning a bit more about that because again, I don't know much about modern Japanese history, but nor am I someone who is massively into financial history. It's not. I'm not really. I watch Wolf of Wall Street because this is a fun time. This is a good character story. I'm not focusing on the Wall Street bollocks. I don't know anything about it. No. We're film students, in case you didn't know. Stop trying to follow me on Instagram, you bloody Forex traders. Leave me alone. I don't want your trading tips, all right? Is that true? Yeah, I get it all the time. Like Forex trader. And then they DM you and they're like, hey, bro, do you want any Forex trading tips? And I'm like, not really. Leave me alone. I don't do that. Forex traders, I don't want your advice. Leave me alone. I love how less than 10 minutes in, we are right into the narrative. There's a sense of mystery with the town that they're at, but we are not starting off with an overly long scene or scenes that take the characters to this place and find that they're there or whatever. Then I put, I'm getting hungry. And then I got, when the sun goes down, you are? Are these notes going to slowly build up to you getting a meal? No, I didn't end up getting a meal. Yeah, I end up just noting down like I am now stirring some noodles. Yeah, every 3 notes, it's just like, all right, this is getting ridiculous now. When I was making the, when I was making these notes, this was what, last week. I had my house to myself, so I was making my food anyway. So I resorted to a lot of noodles and rice based stuff.
Yes.
So there was a lot of like, and I also know how to make katsu. So that's also a,
Really?
yeah. Well, my mum makes the katsu sauce and she freezes in the freezer. I'm like, I know how to defrost.
So you know how to do it in terms of get out the freezer and put in the microwave.
I know exactly that, yes.
Excellent.
But you can also get packets, so it's not like it'll be the end of the world.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Iceland does a good one.
I need a look into that. This is going to just slowly get into us discussing our food, our diets, and our like, oh, what do you like?
Into a food podcast.
I mean, that's easier to do with a Ghibli film, to be fair. That would be, if we ever do a Ghibli film next, it would just be a mukbang.
Oh, can we do a mukbang podcast episode?
About a Ghibli. We just get a look.
We do a mukbang episode on Chef.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be neat. Yeah. We can. Oh no! Oh, we fucking can't. I was going to say we can get Wagamama Deliveroo, but it's like, but they're not anywhere in this town, so we couldn't. So,
yeah. But do you know what? It'd be good for a commentary.
It would, genuinely, yes.
Yeah.
First time I ever watched Chef, I legit had to pause and just make myself a sandwich.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I watched it again like 3 days ago. It's so good.
It's a good one. When the sun goes down and Chihira's parents are pigs, you can feel the fear in her. And I then put, we need more family films that deal with a varied set of emotions, because there is obviously, I'm not terrified watching this, but it almost watching the film. It almost brought me to the fact of like, oh, that is very reminiscent of like if you got lost in a shop.
Yeah.
And it because again, she's running again. There's Haku, who I love. There's no explanation to when he just goes run, and there's no explanation of what that is. It's like fucking hell, and then and then she's run.
The bit when he's like, I used the air and the mist or whatever, and I unbound you, and then she just walks. She can walk again. Well, why was she not able to walk in the first place?
And then she's running, and all like the spirits start coming up, like all these just black ghouly figures, which is really cool, but also really terrifying from a child's point of view. You go to where you think your parents are, and they're just pigs there. So then you just get this realization of like, oh, I'm alone, and you're just running in this unknown space. That is almost like a shop in the sense of like it's designed a lot of like aisles more so than like a big open village or anything. It is more so like a grid.
Yes.
Which is which I think is more so like if you go into like back alleys of like Tokyo or like more smaller places in Japan, you get more just like smaller businesses like that in the sense of without it, not only with it being accurate to Japanese culture anyway, it's just accurate to the feeling of like being in a maze almost.
Yeah, you're right. I think it reminded me a lot of when the whole pig bit started happening and everything. It kind of reminded me of Coraline a little bit.
I need to watch Coraline. I have yet to see it.
That has a similar feeling in terms of like capturing being scared as a kid.
Right.
When she walks into what she thinks is her house or whatever, and then it's like her parents, but they've got like weird buttons for eyes instead of actual eyes or whatever. Like things like that, like it's creepy. And I think kids' films don't do shit like that anymore.
But when I remember being a kid, I remember loving that shit. It was more like if I was scared, then I was scared. But then that film was memorable to me.
Yeah.
And even if I didn't find it scared, I was almost fascinated by it. I was almost like, whoa, look at that. And but then you get other films. Again, we bring up Illumination, but it's an easy punching bag to have with this.
Yeah, an easy target. Yeah.
Where it's just like there's no challenges in terms of like emotions to anything.
No.
Everything's too happy.
Yeah.
And it's just a bit sterile.
Yeah, it feels like, well, it's like made by committee, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not actually trying to say anything. It's just, well, let's get this out. It's pretty cheap and it'll make a lot of money because kids will want to go see it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if that is just kind of like the Japanese culture. That is not completely true because there are some very corporate things in Japan. There are still some very corporate. You get things that obviously anime is an industry, and there is so much anime that is just factory like produced every month.
Okay, yeah.
Like obviously, I'm not massive. I watch Super Eye Patch Wolf, So I'm only familiar about the amount of he does like a load of like video. He does a load of video essays on anime, wrestling, video
I
games.
thought you meant that was the name of an anime. I was like, that sounds amazing.
Super Eye Patch. It's not far off, to be fair. It's not far off. That should be a fun game. I'll bring up, like, you have to choose whether if I made it up or if it's an anime.
Yes, that'd be great.
But like the YouTube channel Super Eye Patch Wolf, he does video essays on anime and video games and wrestling and stuff like that. He did a really, and so I only know about the anime industry from when he talks about like that. Again, I don't have the time to watch as much anime as there is produced. So there is a very factory, like conveyor belt process of it. Yeah, obviously, so Japan has it. Obviously, Japan's a very work country. But I think there's a lot of like gems in obviously this, and we also talked about Seven Samurai, which was a massively produced thing, but still felt very intimate almost. I got 14 minutes in, and I'm fucking in love with this world. It's so creative. I don't know which point that was. I think it might have been I think I know where it was. I think it was the point of when Chihiro got to the steps, and we just saw the boat come in and like all these different spirits start like floating out of everything. I mean, I think I've got another. Yeah, I'll wait to save it before you truly break into the conversation with it. But I just love how, like, again, the thing that that's for a later point. I again, it's just is so like. Again, as we also discussed in Seven Samurai, if you've watched Seven Samurai podcast, and even if you've watched my marathon video that I did on the films of Hirokazu Koreeda, where I kind of like, I'm a big sucker for anything Japanese influenced anyway. So I appreciate the design of everything in this film. I may not be able to identify specifics in terms of, I'm not sure if there is some exact reference to Buddhism spirits or any other like Japanese folklore. I'm not sure if there is. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, because so many of like the spirits are so detailed that it almost feels like that has to be influenced on something embedded in the lore.
Yes.
Similar to how each samurai in Seven Samurai was influenced by real life samurai. So I'm not sure if that's the case, but I just love, like, again, the imagery of it. It's also calm, to me at least, but so like otherworldly. It's the weird balance of it's calm enough to where I almost feel like this feels. Do you know, sometimes the feeling I get on some of the things within this world is almost like if I'm just sat alone at night chilling in a coffee shop. Like that's sometimes like the feeling that I get when watching this, is if I'm just, like there's been times when I've went to a hotel, like when I went to Center Parks, and I've just found myself and a friend sat when we've just been in the sport lounge bar, and then we walk back from there, we find ourselves sat by the lake at night. That's almost the feeling that whilst being a little bit tipsy, that's kind of like the feeling that this film gives me in some of these moments where I almost feel this, like, I feel a bit dazed, but I feel a bit like, God, isn't the world fucking actually pretty cool type of thing.
Okay. I can understand it. I think I don't agree with you, but I can understand where you're coming from, because the imagery is very much that in the film. It is very calm, and it is very nice to sit back and just be like, oh, this is a nice mystical, magical world, and kind of like let it wash over you and everything. Which I think might be me coming into the film with the wrong mindset, because I was asking questions the whole time about everything in my head and being like, what the fuck is any of this?
Yeah.
What is any of this? What is happening? Are we going on to talk about world building? Should I hold on to my thoughts?
Hold it very slightly.
Okay, I'll hold on to it.
But yeah. I this is a bit further in, but not massively further. This is obviously, we had the thing with Haku, which I'm fine with. He does a bit of explanation in the sense of like, eat this. If you don't eat this, you'll disappear type of thing. Or like, you at least need to eat something within this world to not just.
Yeah, to not
which
fade away.
which I guess almost like, I think the parents would have been okay if they just had something. But I guess you look at that in a sense like, oh, they got too greedy, they got overindulgent, they took advantage of almost the thing of like, take this, and they took advantage of it. It's like, well, you fucking being greedy bastards here. And so I appreciate that little bit of explanation, but it was necessary as well, because it's not just, it's a little hint for like things, but it's not like in a Star Trek or something where it's like characters explaining stuff that should know the stuff, but they're explaining it so we know it.
Yeah.
And it comes off more textbooky. Whereas this almost like Haku tells Chihiro the information that she needs to know. Like he says, you need to eat this to survive. But it's not like you need to eat this because if you don't, humans would disappear. And the reason why humans disappear if they don't eat it, it's
it doesn't go to that point of exposition. It just kind of, it tells you things and hopes that you'll just accept them.
Yeah.
That's how it does it. And sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't.
I got here about the Soot sprites are top tier background characters.
I did like them.
Simplistic, but add so much characters to the world. And again, I don't need explanation. Why is there a man with like 6 arms?
Yeah,
I don't need that. Yeah,
I think I wrote down for that when he first showed up. I wrote down Dr. Robotnik looking ass.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
he's got that weird mustache and the glasses. But yeah, I think like things like that are just cool. Those are the bits where I'd switch my brain off for like weird character designs or like fun sequences, like when the stink spirit comes in.
Oh yeah,
I don't question it because I'm like, it's just a fun scene. I don't really.
Yeah, again, it's like the Soot sprites aren't pivotal for the story, but it's just more little things to be like, look at that. Yeah, and because I also got like this is a kind of a follow-on to that. It's like one of my favorite things about the animation in this film, which is in relation to the Soot sprites as well as just generally the whole thing. And a lot of this is also just generally a lot of Ghibli anyway, is that there's always movement, like there's always life to every frame, because like you can look at a frame in this film and like something's moving in the background. And something, even like when they're walking across the bridge, it's like they're not just kind of like they're not like little like things like just like moving like that. That like there's you can see the knees bending and then the foot like going heel toe walk. You can see them all. You can see every movement, and that's not even a thing within anime. Like there's like if you watch like some like obviously if you've grew up watching anime, you would probably be familiar with stuff like Dragon Ball Z or Yu-Gi-Oh, or even some other more recent stuff. There's very little movement. Of course, there's a lot of like budgetary reasons for that. If you're producing so many episodes a season type of thing, there's more.
There's a lot of a guy does that. And then there's just like anime lens behind him.
Yeah. Or like when they're moving, they look angry and their mouth is just kind of going, just kind of like chop. And it's like, and they're designed just to like do an animatic pan to make it look like everything's moving. And there's just like this though, but just their mouths are moving.
Yeah.
And whereas like with this, it's like everything's moving, but everything in the background is moving as well. But it's not like George Lucas re-editing Star Wars where it's like, fuck, that's distracting. It's more like oh, it's almost like there's enough movement where the world feels lived in. Like if we're outside talking and someone's like, and if we stick a camera on us, like if we're out in Church Square, you're going to see people walking by, you're going to see birds flying, you're going to see maybe the wind brush, like wisp through, there's going to be movement. It's not like we're both like still and then nothing else is happening.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, which I think that shows just as much care that gets put into these films, especially specifically Spirited Away, since we're talking about it. And obviously you're more rounded in terms of understanding animation than I am.
Yeah.
So I I can imagine that's A, quite a time-consuming thing to do, and B, not necessarily common.
No, because to me, the way they'll have done things like that is like the background will be painted as it is, and the characters are just animated separately. So you'll have different artists doing the different things. So say when they are walking across the bridge, you'll have like probably someone animating the people walking across the bridge. Then the things in the background, anything that's moving there, will probably be animated by different people. So it's like it's the combined work of multiple different people that make such detailed things like that happen. And it is just really impressive. Like, this film didn't fully click for me, but like I'm incredibly impressed by the detail in the animation and the level of animation. It's insane, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, highly agree with that. And okay, fine.
Anyway, blows my mind. So
What'd you say there?
Like hand-drawn stuff blows my mind anyway.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't imagine doing it.
I don't know how, because it's like literally just a big sheet of paper and then just draw one frame, flick over, make a move slightly, draw another frame. And it's just that over and over again.
Yeah, like shit like that just blows my mind. Because again, it's so simple. In the sense, like, I understand how it's done.
Yeah.
But it's the thought of doing it is terrifying to me. I can't draw. I'm not a great drawer anyway. So, but I feel like even if I did, or even if I was really good at drawing, I would be. I would take so long on one frame.
That's it. Like, you've got to do 24 different drawings before you have a second of a film. Like, it's ridiculous. It doesn't. I don't know how people do it. Anyone that's an animator is insanely talented.
Yeah.
Never do that.
Yeah. And this is the point that's going to lead us on to the world building and all that stuff. I wrote this when I first last week. So this is my initial point as of last week watching it. I got what makes this fantasy world stand out for me is that it feels like a dream world, and the situation Chihiro is in and what surrounds her feels plucked from a dream, kind of nonsensical, surreal, but ultimately enchanting, more fascinating than high fantasy. And I threw that little bit in there, and this is what I want to build off in terms of world building, because since then I also have watched a video. I'll put a link in the description because I can't remember I can literally look at it right now, from the YouTube channel Hello Future Me, where he did a video of hard world building versus soft world building, and not saying that one of them's necessarily better, not saying one of them's better than the other, but more saying this is what advantages have in each other. And the example that he used was Spirited Away and Lord of the Rings. And my thought, and with Spirited Away being soft world building, Lord of the Rings being hard world building. And I've said it many times, I'm not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. It's one of these things that I didn't grow up on them. And I watched them when I was like very first time. I think I was like 18 when I first watched it, maybe 19, like when I first watched it. And I'm not big on fantasy anyway. So if I'm watching 9 hours of high fantasy shit, I'm not like, and it's not that I dislike them. It's not like, fuck, this is boring. I got into them, but I don't necessarily have any intent in watching them again. And I think what I've now learned is especially through watching that type of video of soft world building and hard world building, is I'm definitely more of a fan, especially with fantasy and sci-fi, of soft world building, in the sense of the difference being, obviously, with hard world building, Tolkien made a whole fucking alphabet. He made a whole nother language. He created his own politics and monarchy, and he made this history that is in this story that almost, in order to understand it, to even be sucked into this world, you almost need to be aware of this, everything else with it. And I can see that being fun if you really almost want it, like if you almost want to know every single thing about everything. Like,
Mm.
you're like, how does that work? Here's a whole thing to tell you how that works.
Yeah.
And that could be really cool. I've discovered I'm not that type of person. Whereas like soft world building is more so like, this is a thing.
Right.
And it's like, okay. And the film neither tries to tell you anything about it, nor is there anything out there. Like, it's not like Hayao Miyazaki has like a book that's like, this is the world of Spirited Away. There isn't even a name of the world, I don't think, from my memory.
No, there isn't.
It's not like Chihiro enters or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas like Lord of the Rings, it's Middle Earth, and it's just so much to it. And and there's a quote in that video from Hayao Miyazaki, which I think explains also what I like about film and entertainment generally, is when an interviewer asked him, what strikes me about Spirited Away compared to your previous films is a real freedom of the author, the feeling that you can take the film and the story anywhere you wish, independent of logic even, to which Miyazaki replied, everybody can make a film with logic, but my way is not to use logic. At a certain moment in that process, the lid is opened and very different ideas and visions are liberated. I should not handle a scene in a certain way for the sake of the audience. For instance, what for me continues in the end of the film is the scene in which Chihiro takes the train all by herself, which we will get to. I remember the first time I took the train alone and what my feelings were at the time. To bring these feelings across in the scene, it was important to not have a view through the window of the train, like mountains or forest, because they are so focused on the ride itself. It's while working on that scene that I realized that I work in a non-conscious way. There are more profound things than simply logic that guide the creation of the story. Very Japanese old man wise way he worded that. But I think that sums it up in the sense of like, Spirited Away is more so like, and soft world building as a whole is more so like, you take, the magic is what you take from it and not what I'm trying to tell you what it is.
Yeah, he's like, this is the thing, interpret however you want, but it's the thing.
And specifically, I think what I love, and again, well, we can get in discussion in it, but I'll bring back to my point in the sense of like, this world almost feels like a dream, because I've had dreams, and I'm sure everyone's had dreams, where you wake up and you go like, oh, that was really like, I liked being in that dream, but what the fuck was that? But like, and it's like, I remember, like, I can remember I can't remember specific dreams I've had, but I can remember like being 17 and almost feeling like I was in this like weird alternative mix of like an old like feudal Japanese world and a modern English place. Right. I can only remember the location. I can't remember like anything else about it. I can remember, but just like, again, but I remember things like, oh, I went to get a cup of tea, or oh, I went to school. And I did.
There was a man with a samurai sword and a bowler hat.
That isn't what happened. But I feel like we needed to make that into something, Robbie. Now, but like I remember waking up from that dream and just feeling like I can't. That was weird, but I liked being in it. I wasn't then trying to think psychologically in myself. Like, why did I think that? Obviously, I thought that because I'm a big weeb and I also live in England, but that's not enchanting, is it? If I tell you that, if I simply say to you, oh, there was this world of like feudal Japan and modern England. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Why did you think of that? Well, it's because I like anime and I live in England. Well, that's not exciting. Well, why did you ask? But like, and even like, in another example, slightly, and then we can get further and more specifically into Spirited Away in relation to this topic and world building as a whole. Sci-fi, for the longest time I've said I'm not a big sci-fi fan. Like for the last few years, I've said I'm not a big sci-fi fan, because when I started thinking of sci-fi, I was thinking Star Trek, very scientific-y, spacey things that I'm like, I'm just not into this. Like Interstellar, I don't mind. I mean, we rewatched that not long, a few months ago, and we both kind of realized, oh, this isn't as good as we both remembered.
It's whack. It's a whack movie.
Yeah. But then I realized, oh no, I do really like sci-fi films, but specific sci-fi films. And the specific sci-fi films and sci-fi fiction that I do like, I like the video game Detroit Become Human, which is very much so just androids. And that's it. I like the world of Blade Runner. There's nothing really explained about that. We will get to that world later. And obviously my favorite sci-fi, I like Inception as well, where there's a lot of exposition in there, but there's a lot of where it is. But my favorite sci-fi film ever, Her, which is a film I don't inherently think of sci-fi, but there's a lot of like, it's a world that just is.
Yes.
And and I think that is soft world building to the T, in the sense of like, where the world building we're seeing is just how the characters like just what the character is doing in that world. Like we're more so just seeing the world and being like, what's that? And then just moving on. Like, oh, there's a world where that exists. That's interesting. So I'll stop waffling on about that, and then we can actually have a discussion about it. But yeah.
But see, right. I think I very much like hard world building instead, because when things are just put forward and not explained, it annoys me. I can't just go like, oh, that's interesting, and then like, move on, because I'm like, well, what? No. Like, you need to explain things like that. Like I said, the thing where she couldn't walk anymore, and then he just kind of touched her leg and summoned some mystical power from the airs or something. And it's like, well, is that a power that he has? How does he know how to do that? What does that even mean? Why couldn't she move? Like this, like things like that irritate me. And I think that's where the world building in this film fell really short for me, because there is no explanation for anything. I was fine with just being like, when they said, it's a bathhouse where we look after and refresh spirits, quotation mark spirits. Whose spirits? Where did they come from? What are they? Don't know. Never said. Like, what even are any of the spirits? I don't know. Like, what? Like, once, like, I think once I'd just kind of got on with it, and she was doing things, and she was just working there or whatever, that's when I liked the film the most, I think. One of the things that really kind of irritates me in films like this, like magical films and stuff, and the biggest example I can think of is Harry Potter. So I'm going to go on a little rant about Harry Potter for a minute.
Another example of a film that kind of went from soft world building and then eventually delved into hard world building. Yes,
very much so. I'm just gonna so I know that Harry Potter has a big fan base, so anyone that's a big fan of Harry Potter, don't come after me. Generally speaking, I like the films, all right, just leave me alone. But the one thing with the writing of the Harry Potter things that annoys me is that J.K. Rowling, putting aside all the other things that are going on with there at the minute, she likes to write herself into situations where the readers are going to be like, what? There's no way out of this. How are you going to get out of this? And then she just gives a new power to a thing that's never had that power before, but has been there the whole time.
Yeah.
And it happens in this movie, like, a lot, where it's like, there's the little, when Thingy turns into a dragon.
Haku.
Yeah, when he's a dragon, and then he shows up and he's all injured or whatever, and then he coughs up that golden seal thing. And also it's just like, oh, yeah, she has a twin sister. Okay, I guess. Fine. And then it's like, she has a twin sister. This was the golden seal. What does the golden seal do? I don't know. But she spits it out. He spits it out, and then there's that little black goo worm thing or whatever. And she steps on it and kills it. And then we get to the house. We get to the twins' house, and she's all like, oh no, that thing that you stepped on, that was the thing that was controlling Thingy and making him be under the witch's control or whatever. And I'm like, oh, was it? Okay. I mean, I guess it would be nice if someone pointed that out before this.
Why? Why before it?
Because then it's like when the guy was like the Dr. Robotnik with 6 arms was like, you need to catch that thing. He clearly would have known what it is. So why not just say? Otherwise, he wouldn't have like, you need to catch that thing.
Yeah.
Because just like lots of things like that where just things aren't explained. And I'm like, what's any of this? And I think that the biggest thing that made me like actually get a little bit angry was
you're the right, before you continue that point, you're the very first person who's ever watched Spirited Away and went, the one thing that kind of made me angry. I know it's just the thought of someone like watching Spirited Away and being like, motherfucker. Like
well, it was because it's been building up inside me because I've been trying to enjoy it. And I was pushing aside the nonsensical things that came out of nowhere, like her having a twin sister for no particular reason and whatnot. And
but why do you need a reason for that? Why do you need to explain that she has a sister?
Why has it not been mentioned?
Why? I don't need to ask you. It's like, by the way, tell us you have a sister. Like I don't need that information to know you, do I?
I know, right? But like when she's going to be pivotal to the plot, I think this is the thing that annoys me. When something's going to be pivotal to the plot, that's when I want an explanation, or I want it at least setting up beforehand.
But she's introduced when she is pivotal. There's no reason for her to go, by the way, I have a twin sister. You might see her if any shit goes down. It's like, then she pops in and it's like, oh, I guess that's the twin sister. Because
but like the bit that annoys that like actually made me go, nah, come on, right? Is the bit at the end where she's riding on, again, I can't remember his name.
Haku.
The dragon. Yeah, Haku. She's riding on the back of Haku and then gets a flashback to a point in her life that has never been mentioned before, where apparently she fell in a river and then was saved by a river guardian called this name. And then she goes, I've remembered this now. This is your name. Is it?
Yes,
that annoyed me because I was like, there's been no mention of her ever falling in a river before and losing a shoe and miraculously surviving.
Was it? No, I can't remember. No, I don't think there was.
It's not mentioned, and then all of a sudden she has a flashback, and I was like, oh, what's this going to be about then? And then it's like,
you don't see it, do you? Do you see the flashback?
Yeah, when she like falls asleep on his back or whatever when she's riding on him, and then she gets flashes to like her being underwater, and then you see like her pink shoe.
Do you know what I thought? I thought that was more so like, I don't know why my mind went to that was a flash of when she got fucking washed in the bathhouse after the stink spirit.
No.
Right, yeah.
But then it's like, she's like, I know your name, and he's like, oh, good. And I was like, oh, this will be interesting. And then she just comes out with a thing that's never been said before in the movie.
I can see what you mean. I can't argue that in terms of it is very like, I almost drowned once. I can see what you mean with that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
He's like, oh my God, you're right. That is my name. I remember now. I'm a water spirit. It's like, are you?
I will admit, the English dub of that is clunky. That's the only clunky moment of the English dub. Really? Like the dialogue exchange of that. Because when I watched it with the Japanese dub, it was more so like, I got the impression more so he's not, I don't know, it was weird. I got the impression more so he was the river as opposed to like a river spirit.
Yeah,
I think like that.
That's they kind of say that. I think he kind of says like he is, I think he says that he is the river, but he's the spirit of the river or something.
It was a lot less because I watched it again yesterday, English dub, and I remember thinking to myself, that's a bit corny. Yeah. But like when I watched it with the original Japanese subtitled, it didn't come off. It came off more heartwarming to me at that moment. Right. But I think a lot more. I guess that is translation because again, if you reading something is you you can get away with how something reads as opposed to how something sounds. And of course, all I'm hearing is Japanese dialogue and just seeing what that means. Because I mean, we know in the sense like we can write something from a script, go, that sounds mint. And then you get actors reading it and you go, oh, that sounds really shit.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right at all. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like a similar thing that might have happened with this, in the sense like, obviously when you're translating things, the Japanese wording isn't exactly, because there's a lot, obviously the word hi in Japanese can be yes, but the word hi also can mean okay, I agree, or like understood, or that kind of encapsulates just that general meaning. So if like again, I've heard it made in this version, the word hi was used a lot, but the yes wasn't said loads in the English actual translation. Yeah. So I think it's a similar thing to this, where maybe the exact wording and translation of that scene in Japanese doesn't quite, like if you do the exact translation in English, it's a bit more clunky.
I think so. I think it was that bit, and there was another one where, not like that it didn't have any explanation, but where I didn't quite get what it meant. I think it was some spell or something that they said had been broken by love. What's that about?
Was that with Chihiro and Haku? Was that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a spell broken by love, and I was like, well, do they love each other? I don't think so, because she's meant to be like 10.
How old's a minute? Hang on. I'm gonna. How old's Haku?
I'm just kind of like, well,
that's a very good point, actually. Hang on.
Yeah, but like, it's like, do they love each other? If so, why? Because he hasn't really shown up in this movie much since like the first scene.
Yeah, age. That's an interesting thing that I've noticed as well. Like, obviously watching Ponyo as well. Hayao Miyazaki loves his love breaks the spells.
Right. Okay.
He likes that a lot. It is stuff. So my Haku is 12 years old. So.
Right.
But I don't know why I thought older, but kids in anime always look older. They just always do. Like you get like I'm just briefly opening the door for you, Robbie. Just to, I'm not telling you to enter this door. I'm telling you like this is what's behind this door. There's obviously school anime, but then there's also a specific subsection, schoolgirl anime, where it's not necessarily just about sex. It's not about that. But obviously, you know, they do that section of genre anime deals with a lot of like, you know, hormones that teens go through. And obviously the animation is drawn and they definitely do not look like teenagers. They definitely do not look like teenagers.
That makes me feel weird.
Yeah, and I'll shut that door for you, Robbie, because I guarantee you probably don't want to go down that one.
Have you got the key? So we can lock it behind you. Excellent.
But then there's also non-battle anime. I'll show you this one in Clincher Part. There's non-battle anime because there's battle anime where it's just like Dragon Ball Z where people are beating the shit out of each other. But then there's also non-battle anime where they do the exact same stories of this person wants to battle this person and wants to be the best at this thing. And they do all the animation that's really like dramatic and battle stuff. But it's like about cooking or it's about chess or it's about poker. So it's really over dramatized, like, oh, that person's cooking rice.
Oh, okay.
It's like, oh no, I've run out of eggs. And it's all very dramatic. It's fun. It's fun shit.
I enjoy that. Thank you for cleansing my palate after.
There you go. And we can continue the world building conversation throughout the thing. But I've got here, as much as I love the fantasy elements of this film, one core point of the film that I adore is the quieter, more real moments, highlighting small things like folding clothes, making the bed, cooking food, etc. they add a layer of relatability to it and keeps itself firmly in the Japanese history culture, akin to the films of Yasujiro Ozu. And what I specifically mean, again, look, discuss there, love the fantasy elements. I love the fact there's just spirits floating around and Haku's a dragon sometimes. I dig that. All the little soot sprites. But then there's just moments of when there's a solid section of when they just clean the floor.
Yeah, that bit's good.
And it's just all like, let's make the bed now.
Yeah.
And it's like,
those are the bits that I enjoyed the most, I think, is when she was just doing stuff in the bathhouse.
Yeah, which I remember when I first watched the film, again, the greatest animated film ever. And obviously I've seen Princess Mononoke, which is a Hayao Miyazaki film, which is more epic in scope and more has like a specific narrative to it. And obviously I start this film, little girl lost her parents in this fantasy world. My mind automatically goes, oh, so the whole film's just going to be about her journey to save her parents.
Yeah.
But it isn't. No, there's moments where she, like, we get, it's almost like, it is almost like a video game, I guess you can say, in the sense of like, this is the main mission, but you also need to do all these other things.
You need to do loads of little side quests to get you whatever to go to the next place.
And usually shit like that's my favorite thing in a game, if I'm being honest. Like, again, I think I've definitely discussed this before. I love Ghost of Tsushima. Obviously, there's the big ongoing story of like, you need to fight the Mongolians. But then there's moments where like, you need to like get like some bamboo for this villager.
I'm very excited about it. On my PlayStation 4 that I don't have anymore.
Oh no. The director's cut's come out for PS5 and I really want to get it, but it's £70 and I don't want to wait.
Well, if I get a PlayStation 5, I'll let you know.
But I think what I love about like, though, again, I love those moments. And again, obviously watching it, I was a little bit disappointed at first because I was like, oh, it's not big and epic. But since the first time I watched this film, obviously I've grown more. I've researched more about Japanese living. I've watched more films of the filmmaker Yasujiro Ozu, who I've just mentioned there, who's like a modern example who can like, I can't really think of like who's a good example of that, of like, but he does a lot of films where it's like just kind of like family life.
Okay.
Where like there's just like obviously there's him and Kurosawa are kind of the same era, where Kurosawa was more the big action epic guy.
Yeah.
Ozu was more like, this is a story about there's an old father with a daughter, and he kind of wants his daughter to get married, but she's not really ready for it yet.
Right. Okay.
And that's the film. And then you kind of see, and then there's scenes of the dad just in a tea house, sitting with his mates drinking tea.
So it's more of the equivalent of like a kitchen sink drama nowadays.
Yeah, slice of life, kitchen sink drama, that type of stuff. And there's a lot of inherent, and I think like the Japanese are they like that a lot in the sense of like, just like, I don't quite know why they attach themselves to that, but obviously, but I find that like there's a lot of effort put into like, again, when they just scrub the floors, when they're cleaning the bath, when they're making a bed, even like later on where Granny's making food and we're just watching, like, I don't know, there's like little charms to that. Because the way Miyazaki does it, I think he puts a lot of effort into the wonder and whimsy of the world, the fantasy world, but he almost puts that just as much attention and craft into those elements, into, again, when they are cleaning the bath.
Yeah.
And he always mixes them quite beautifully. Again, I'm looking at like the background behind you with him. Radish, I keep forgetting, Radish Spirit, where it's him and Chihiro just in a lift. And again, any other film would have just skipped, like they hit the bar, doors closed, and then we just cut to them getting out the lift. But then there's a moment of them just kind of like stood in the lift. They get to a floor, a door opens. It's not the right floor. They wait for a bit longer. The door shuts again, and then they continue going up to where they need to be.
I love like how much he plods about as well.
Yeah.
gets out, he like looks side to side or whatever, and then keeps walking like everything's fine.
But it's
But when
like,
he like goes in the lift and he
you what?
leave again. When you get back in the lift and go up again or
I
something.
think so, yeah. But like we've all been in a situation like that where we've been in a lift and there's been in a crowd and you kind of been like, okay, you just wait. Door opens, no one, there's no one there, and no one gets out. So you just be like, I guess we wait. you, you go up again. It's, I don't know. Again, I think I appreciate that a lot because again, I can appreciate Lord of the Rings if we're talking about like, I think that's why I get invested in fantasy worlds like this because of like little moments like that where it's like, God, I can relate to just being like that. Or like again, we'll get to the train scene where it's like I've been on many of train journeys. And obviously, I think the difference is as well. I'll compare the two again. Not to say I'm slagging on Lord of the Rings, but I think with Lord of the Rings, all of them are from that world, so there's no need to like. We almost play as like someone watching it as opposed to someone getting sucked into it, and we get sucked into Middle Earth just through our fascination by how that world works, as opposed to like actually being like, I'm this person. Whereas like I think with this, we are directly going from the normal world into this world. So I think like if Chihiro was just all of a sudden a part of this big fantasy world, I think it helps the fact of like, oh, now she's just in a lift. And you can almost look at the sense like, because obviously you could also look at this film as a coming of age film. And obviously Chihiro, this is probably the first time she's doing all these things by herself. And obviously as a kid, say like you're at Burger King or McDonald's and your mum goes, go and you order food then. And then you're just like, what? And it's like, no, here's the money. Just go up and say what you want. And it's terrifying. And you can almost look at, and even like taking transport for the first time by yourself. Or like, and you can look at like Chihiro's almost doing that in this world. For the first time, which I think I like that. That's why we see like the more normal mundane things in this fantasy world.
Because I read it as this movie being about a girl kind of learning how to deal with change and dealing with change as a kid, because you're not like, obviously it's framed around her moving house. So she goes through all this other stuff and is like, you know what, in the grand scheme of things, moving house isn't really that big of a deal. And then by the end, she's like, I think I can handle it. I think is the last line of the film or something like that.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
That so I appreciated that as like being the message for kids coming out of it.
Yeah. Pete Docter does that wonderful, I think, as well for like the West, like it's like Inside Out. I think it's like a big
like doing a message for kids without really, the film's not about that.
This is in relation to the scene of where she does go to the pig pen, and when she does eat the rice, the onigiri, when she is crying. I've got the song One Summer Day seems to play during moments directly linked to Chihiro as Chihiro and not Sen. But with a moment of sadness accompanying the fond memories. Obviously, like that song, the first time it plays when she's driving in a car, moving to a new town, which is, bittersweet type of thing. And obviously eating rice after seeing her parents as pigs in the pen. She's like, it's related to the soundtrack. It's incredible. It's just wonderful, I think. And that one specific song, I think if you just hear that one piano chord, you instantly know like the feeling that they're trying to do. And obviously I believe we've discussed motifs and all sorts of things in this before, but there's not necessarily a character motif, although there might be one for No Face. We will get a No Face, but
I think there's more motifs for, like you said, for feelings and for things to do with what's going on in her head at the time. Because I like the importance that's put on memories. In the film, because I feel like that's again something that links to this idea of the film's about a girl learning to deal with change for the first time on a big scale, because it's kind of like remember all the things that came before, sort of thing, but be excited for what's coming after.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, because obviously,
on memories.
yeah, that is a good point, because obviously, I think as well, especially if we're talking about situations where we're at, which is we're entering our third year of uni. So for the past 2 years, we've kind of been like, we've almost been trying to almost force our brains to almost think of the industry, just think of like advancing, think of like, but like we almost need to like stop and almost think back to be like, okay, yeah, remember who we're trying to be, but also remember who we are anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because sometimes those are the moments where they benefit you more.
Yes.
Like, obviously, I want to be working. And I guess a good example, obviously, I want to be working in the film world, which is new to me in the sense of like what's going to come. And obviously, I want to do all these things, which I've yet to do. So I'm trying to strive to that. But as much as I'm pushing to that, what's also kind of getting me there is just remembering like, oh, but why am I doing this? And remember to also appreciate the situation you are at and like be with the people. Because again, these summer breaks, Robbie, for me are always a bit of like a reflective stage in the sense of like thinking back to the previous year and thinking and like a lot of reflective in terms like, how did I do? And obviously I surprising to myself, I did very well second year. I did very well. And there's a lot of moments where I just kind of did a thing and went, oh, that'll do, whatever. And that turned out to be more than enough. And so like, especially this summertime, I almost think to myself, right, I need to almost make sure I appreciate, and I did that a lot more in second year. I made sure to be a lot more socialized with people within uni, do new things. If like, again, like for example, when we just went to that Jurassic Park thing that the SU were doing, just doing shit like that. And it didn't hinder my work, but I'm glad that I did it because it's something that I wouldn't have quite have done, but it's not necessarily related to my work, but it's something that I'm almost just, but remember to also have fun. Remember to also just enjoy this. Because imagine leaving and being like, yeah, I did work, but fuck, I didn't really do anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could have done. And I guess you can almost look at Spirited Away in the sense of like, Chihiro is working. At this point, she's Sen. She's not complaining as such. She's getting on with the work. She's doing it. She's getting really upset and stressed that her parents are pigs. And then she's like, oh, what if I never leave? What if I never leave? It's like, just remember, just always remember where you came from because you will eventually leave. Because there's never a moment in this film where she's trying to escape, which I also like. She's not trapped.
No, she accepts it pretty early on.
But she's also not like, well, I'll just stay here. Because there's also another really beautiful moment, which I haven't noted down, but it's related to this, where where Sen, when she is Sen, and Lin are sat, and there's that one moment of just the train going by on like the ocean. And Lin just goes like, I can't wait to get out of here. Everything. But that doesn't sound more like a thing of like, I'm trying to escape this hell. It's more of like a thing of like you're working at a 9 to 5. And I can't wait to advance.
You want to do bigger things.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, I know what you're saying. I mean, like, I think I'm kind of the opposite in terms of these summer breaks. For me, I'm always I don't usually take a minute to think and reflect on stuff, which I probably should more often, to be honest. But yeah, I'm always thinking about what I can, what I'm doing next, which sometimes isn't the best thing to do. No. So yeah, I don't know. I appreciated that quality of this movie.
Yeah.
Like the emphasis on memory and remembering things before,
Yeah, no, definitely.
Like,
I got a Stig Spirit. What a simple but inventive concept.
Yeah, I loved it. Like that, I think that's my favorite scene because it's just a laugh. It's just a good time. And
again, that's what I mean. I love it's almost like it's just a series of little events. Like that didn't play any part in the film in the sense of like Like,
not the overarching plot, except that like she got that weird little shitball.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, it's almost a mini arc in the sense of like, there's this stink spirit. Everyone's like, fuck, this is dreadful. And then it's like, Chihiro, you need to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. And then again, like a video game, she almost needs to be like, right, need to get to this thing, do it's taking all the things you learn in the tutorial and then like advancing it in. It's just, I don't know. It's easy viewing, but also not like fast food. It's not like a waste to the story. Yeah. It adds to Chihiro / Sen as a character. But again, you could take that out and be like, well, that doesn't affect the overarching story, but it adds more to us as a viewer to be like, Sen went through that.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, little thing. Again, I love how there's a stinks, even though it doesn't turn out to be a stink spirit, but I love how that's a thing. You know what I mean? It's like
what even is that?
Yeah. But they all know what it is. It's not like, wait, what is that? It's like, does that mean?
Oh, is it okay?
Like, it opens up so much more to the world in the sense, like, does that mean there's like I don't know, like a rain spirit where there's just like this floating cloud or whatever, like, like just like little things like that. It's just cool. With the combination of the animation and sound design, I can practically feel the textures. That's another thing with Ghibli. They do wonders with sound design.
Yes.
Again, the simple moments where she pulls the lever and like the wooden plank.
Yeah. I love that sound.
Yeah, the creak.
Yeah.
Or like the footsteps. Or like, again, as much as this has like a beautiful soundtrack, they know when to just go, right, we don't need the score, we just need the sound design.
Yeah, exactly.
And we said that, I think, about Seven Samurai as well, like especially like in the fight scenes where there's no like big like the score's good, but then there's just moments where we just hear the fighting.
Yeah. It's just swords clacking and people screaming and whatever.
Yeah. And I like that with this as well. Again, sound design is really good. I think that's just the same with any Ghibli film, if I'm being honest. Like, I always that's always a big highlight when I'm watching a Ghibli film. I know that now that I'm more experienced in filmmaking as a whole, but I always like as long as I've been watching Ghibli films, which have been about 9 years now, I've always like loved the feeling of a Ghibli film, and I never could quite put my finger on it. And what it is, it's the visuals and the sound design of it. Because again, it's so much of just like where you just hear something and it puts you just in more of like I think more so in a Ghibli film, quite tranquil space.
Yeah. That's what I think that's my biggest positive about it, is just like the feeling of it overall. Like the actual feeling the film creates through its sound design, through its visuals and its iconography and stuff. It is a nice feeling film.
I think that's what gets everyone more hooked on Ghibli films, because obviously if you take these stories, a lot of their stories can be like, oh, Disney do a similar thing where it's like fantasy, but like I think if some people just see Totoro, they can almost just feel or like hear the space of it, and it's a warm hug almost. I think that's what gets more people attached to the films of Ghibli, and I think that's what, like, personally, my experience of looking at Ghibli fandom, it's quite a safe space within fandom. There's no one going like, how could they fuck that up? It's like no one's like kicking off about it, but it's almost just a bunch of people like, fucking, how cute was that?
What is this? Yeah.
And everyone's like, I associate Ghibli films like tea rooms. I don't know why, because like whenever I've been like a tea room, whether it be in Hartlepool or Newcastle, they always have like mangas and there's all stuff like that. Or like certain ones I've been to where it's like you can get a cuppa and then there's just like a Totoro poster, or there's like a little like Ghibli art book. Like it just like,
because I always associate them with, when you put in some music on YouTube for like, it's that like lo-fi beats for studying or whatever.
Yeah.
Every single thumbnail of those videos is usually just a screenshot from one of these movies.
Yeah, you get Lo-Fi Girl as well, who's just a little anime. Which there's a YouTube channel I want to check. It's popped up on my recommendations where there's this YouTube channel. From what it looks like, they upload like 7-hour videos of like ambient stuff where it's like Kiki's bedroom Kiki's Delivery Service, where it's just like a 3D kind of like rendered aesthetic image of it, where there's like rain outside in the back and the fire crackling, and then like a little hint of like the Kiki's Delivery Service score.
Right. Okay.
So like, but I think you watch that and like you're automatically like, oh, that film. I think there's something so special about like if a film can do that, where you can go, this is it. And I think if you could make a film have a feeling, you fucking scored, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Especially like in an otherworldly film. I think again, we love Star Wars when it is good because when it gives us a feeling of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think I could say the same with something like this. Like I briefly said I like the inclusion of blood. It's when Haku was just again it's a bit jarring, but it's not too much. I don't think. I just like it.
It's cool. It's cool use.
Right, No Face. I got here. No Face might be my favorite character in Spirited Away, and specifically the scene of where he tries to give Chihiro the gold, like that. Almost like kind of like. I can't explain No Face. I can't say, that's another thing. I can see your face, Robbie, when I say No Face. And I think this again is the encapsulation of, there's a car beeping outside. That's why I put it. If you didn't hear that, it just looked really awkward. But I think that's the perfect encapsulation of soft world building and hard world building. There's nothing hard world building about No Face. There's nothing about him at all. That's like, or it, they, whatever. Like,
I have two notes about No Face. They are as follows because it's one after the other in my notes. I wonder if we'll get an explanation of what No Face is, and then the next one's just nope.
Like there's nothing.
Nothing.
Don't get anything from him at all. But I almost like just his presence, and he's scary, but also kind of charming. In a sense, because he's just got, I mean, he's got kind of got this dopey smile, like, but he's almost like this looming black, like ghostly presence. And again, I need to look more into that, if there is any theories or anything. Obviously, Miyazaki makes his films like very much so like it's up to your interpretation of what you take from it. There's no right or wrong. It's whether you interpret. I don't know how to interpret No Face because
I think I liked the presence of him, and I liked like you said, I liked the way he looks, and I like the presence of this looming kind of weird black figure sort of thing. Until he started talking and eating.
Do you mean when he when he started taking people and then talking? Yeah.
Like when he was first there and he was just kind of like floating on the bridge or whatever, and then he just like appear every now and again, and then he like appears to her or whatever like once, and when he's in the bathhouse and helping her out or whatever. Like I appreciated that as a presence before he started eating people and eating and talking.
Yeah. No, I do agree. I think because again, this was my thoughts on my second view of Spirited Away last week. So from my I think I liked just the story of him in the sense of like Chihiro was the first person to kind of like welcome him almost, I think.
Yeah.
Like, because from my understanding, he just kind of like looms about.
Yes.
And Chihiro is the first person like kind of pay him attention. So he's almost like, oh,
yeah,
okay. And then like he's just kind of stood outside and she goes, I'll leave the door open. And he's like, oh, okay. And he like comes in and he helps her by getting like the bath chips, I guess you call them, plaques. Yeah. He's like, I'm helping you, see? And then she's like, thank you. He's like, oh, okay. And then he then just has a fuckload of them in his hand. And she goes, I don't need all of them. And he's like, oh, but, and then that's another example. You couldn't have done this in anything other than 2D animation. No other anime, like nothing else would have worked with him.
No, nothing.
And I feel like, obviously, when the gold starts coming into it, and he almost sees everyone being like, oh, gold, we need gold. So he almost sees that as like, oh, people give attention to gold. Let
Yeah.
me do that. And he's getting all this attention. I look at that in a sense he's almost like he's not doing it to be like worship me. He's almost like I'm accepted, like
Yeah.
almost. And
Yeah.
then when he gets to Chihiro Sen, he then has a big fucking like
Massive.
just
Yeah.
pile of it. And
Yeah.
she goes, no, thank you. Not to be like, fuck you, but to be like, I don't need it nor want it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh no. Like I haven't watched the video, but I saw like one thing where it's like, no face is an incel and you can't change my mind, which I find just a funny which I just find funny. It's like, and he's
the nice guy, man.
Yeah.
What he is.
And I don't know, I think I just like, again, it's a small, the film's not about this, but it's a small little subsection of someone just wanting to be accepted.
Yeah.
And again, I think I like No Face a lot more so, again, how we've talked about within this discussion so far, just of the feeling that I get involving him and his storyline. There's no explanation behind him. No. I don't need it, but I can understand. But I can also understand. But if someone went to me, what was No Face? I would go, I don't know.
Yeah, which is kind of my opinion on it. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Why was? And I think
he's all. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Robbie. I just want to say he's almost played more so the mascot for Spirited Away as opposed to like about Spirited Away.
Yeah, I think because I'm sure you want to have a discussion about the train scene. So the shot of them on the train, of them two sat together on the train, you know the shot from Spirited Away.
Yeah.
I've seen that multiple times on Twitter and whatever, with things like, if you don't cry watching this, I don't, you want, what else are you going to cry at, sort of thing.
It's not.
Now that I've seen the film and I've seen the context of the scene and everything, I'm like, why would anyone cry at that?
Yeah, it's not a film that I cry at, and it's not a scene that I cry at.
It's not. I don't think, I might have just been missing the point, but that scene didn't really do anything for me. Again,
I'll quickly say my other point there, because literally the train scene's right after my next point. It's a small little point. And the point is, I went, of everything in this film, the big baby might be the thing that I'm most uncomfortable with.
Yeah. Real weird.
I didn't like it. Like, I'm fine, like, in the sense, I didn't like it. That makes this bad. More so in the sense of like, oh no. I don't know. I
preferred him when he was a little guinea pig / hamster / whatever he is, when he gets turned into a thing.
Hey, so did he, which I loved when Granny was like, do you want to? It's like, they could get changed back if they want to. Like, no.
He's like, no. I enjoy it. I like that. But yeah, the actual big baby itself, when it's like, play with me now or I'm going to start crying and all this, I'm like, stop it.
I don't know why. I don't know what this says about me. I might be out myself here as something that I'm not aware of, but I don't know what this says about me. My instant reaction with a giant baby would be just a bat in the face. Like, it's like if a giant baby, like, and I mean a giant baby, I don't mean the size of me, I mean like bigger than me,
like a big 8-foot baby,
just grabs me and goes, play with me or cry, my reaction would be go bah.
It'd be like, I'd do like a shark, I reckon, where you're meant to just bop it in the nose. One of them.
Just again, and then I might say that and people go, oh, but it's a baby. I'm like, it's no, right.
It's not a baby, it's a monster. I'm sorry.
It's not. I like how we're talking about this as if a giant baby did come up, but it's like, it's a genuine.
If a giant baby ever came up to me, like we're going to encounter a giant 8-foot baby at some point in our life.
It's like, I discovered something like giant babies of any sort just get me either angry or freak me out.
I like it.
I don't know why. It's like, there's like a thing at like, I think Universal, where there's a Boss Baby mascot and I hate it. Like, it just kind of like waddles around and you get photos taken with it. And I'm like,
I punch that in the face. I don't like that at all.
I don't know why. It's just not right. Again, a baby I'm fine with. A normal baby,
Yeah, babies are fine.
Yeah, they can either be adorable or they can just be existing. Like that's like the
That's
most for
the
the baby.
range. Yeah.
Toddlers, same thing. Whatever.
Actually, I had this discussion with my sister yesterday. Actually, babies stink. You know when people say about like the smell of a baby or whatever, and that is a really nice and comforting smell or whatever. That they have that natural baby smell. Well, like they reek. It's not a nice smell, is it? Babies have a smell because they've been inside a human for 9 months. So it's gonna take more than like 2 baths to get a smell off them. But it's like
right, okay.
They just smell of human insides. They don't smell nice.
I didn't know if you meant like the smell of a bit. I don't know if you meant like a fresh baby or like a bit
fresh baby. Like fresh out the packaging. I don't mean like it shit itself. I mean,
that's all my favorite terminology is a fresh baby. No, not how old's your baby, how fresh is your baby?
How fresh is your baby? Is it ripe yet?
And this baby in Spirited Away is anything but fresh.
Yeah, no. I bet that baby stinks. That baby absolutely reeks.
And also that baby sleeps under so much like blankets and stuffed toys. Yeah. You shouldn't do that. Anyway.
It'll suffocate. But if it wasn't going to get turned into a rat or whatever happens to it, then it was going to fucking die anyway.
And that transformation scene is like, oh, which again, that would be like 2 times more terrifying if that was live action. Could you imagine that?
When the 3 heads, when the 3 heads of the baby, and the baby turns back into the 3 heads, terrifying.
Yeah, where it's first a bloke. And then it's good shit. I like it. Right, the train scene. I've got here. The train scene is probably my favorite scene. And the little note that I put there is it's all about the journey. Patience is key. I guess I meant that when I wrote it. But what I think again, if we're looking back by Hayao Miyazaki, talking about like basically condensing his big thing. And saying like it's all about how you perceive it. And I think that's what this train scene is in depth. I don't think Hayao Miyazaki has like a grander meaning behind this. And I agree with you in the sense of like how when people like, if you don't cry at this, what are you? It's not that.
It's not.
It's not like Andy giving away the toys at the end of Toy Story 3.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that.
It's not meant to be an emotional scene.
And again, when I say like, oh, it's kind of like whatever you take from it. An example being like when listening to the Cinefix commentary, Kenny Omega said about how, which is very interesting. He said the difference in a big thing in Japan is the train travel is like train travel is more reliable than if you get a car in Japan. Like you could expect to be on time no matter where you're on train. So there would be moments where he would say there'll be nights where he would be rested in front of 20,000 people. And then he would then get the train back on his own. And then within those train journeys, he would then think about like the complete contrast of being in front of so many people and then just being like on your own in this one place. And that's what you got from it. And there's also another moments which I love, because I also want to say I love train scenes in films. I just discovered like you get a train in a film, I'm fucking loving it.
Oh yeah.
And my favorite trilogy is the Before trilogy.
Yes.
It literally starts with a train thing. I love it. And there's another thing. There was another one. I can't remember. 500 Days of Summer has a small train scene, but also I love train travel. I love traveling in a train. For me personally, I've always, I don't drive. So if I had to get to Newcastle by myself, I would have to take the train.
Yeah.
So I always associate going to a fun place with a train almost. And especially with this film, what I also love is like with this specific scene, there's life to it in the sense that there's people in there, there's other passengers, but they're all faceless. And they're all defined. They're not just like they're not like No Face where it's just
Like
a thing. It's like there's a guy in a coat and a fedora.
Yeah.
They're clothed, and there's people where, and we see the whole train travel where like we have that beautiful Joe Hisashi score. There's different stops, there's people getting the bags and then going off. And it's like, oh yeah, to me, it's like a train travel is the only time where a fuckload of people are in one space. And with a train travel, unlike if you would go to a park or the beach, that there's no like that's a very still location. Like people are going there to just stay there. Whereas like with the train, no one's going on a train to be on a train. Everyone's going on a train to get to another place.
Yeah.
So it's almost like when, to me, again, let me put my metaphor hat on. My Oscar W. Fitchett looking too deeply into something.
Yes.
It's almost like there's a train is almost that one time when I'm probably like the only thing we all have in common is we're all going on our own journey to a place. We've all got a destination. We're all thinking about something. Like no matter what it is, like your thoughts can be going anything. It could be like, what am I going to do when I get to the place I'm going? Or thinking about what happened before I got on the train, just thinking about something that is happening right on the train, right that moment. And again, there's nothing emotional in the sense of like, there's no character arc in this scene. There's no like fucking like anything like there's no moment where like, oh, Chihiro finally did this. It's like Chihiro's on a train and then they're just going. And again, to me, I get chills every time I see that scene because I think the music in itself is great. I love the imagery anyway. That's the only time where we're left just to sit for a moment.
Yeah.
And just allow the atmosphere to actually be the forefront instead of the story. And it might also be because I haven't been on a train in like over a year and a half now. So I get a little bit emotional about that anyway, in a sense, like, fuck, I'm like the thought of traveling to me is emotional anyway right now.
Okay.
So I get it from that. I might, but it's not it's not like, how do you get emotional? Because I don't get emotional. It is a scene where it's like, again, soft world building, where you're just watching something.
Yeah. To me, I think the score is incredible. The music that's actually playing is amazing in that scene. The imagery of the scene is amazing. It looks beautiful, and it does create this real feeling of being on public travel, which is again something that I love going on a train. It's so good. It's my favorite thing in the world. Like I would much rather get a train right the way back from uni to home than to drive. Or like if I'm going to visit Julie or whatever, we live 7 hours away from each other when we're at uni. So I would much rather get the train there than to drive there. You know, like I enjoy being on the train for long periods of time. And it does kind of capture that feeling very nicely. But it just didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's because like you were saying, there's no arc being paid off. It's not a character moment. It's not anything. It's just a scene where we stop for a bit and you can have a breather. But then I was like, well, I wasn't particularly invested in what was happening anyway, so I don't need this breather.
Yeah. I think sorry. I was just gonna say like how like people might get emotional by this because I don't know. Again, you take with what you get. You interpret what's happening. Some people might associate a train journey with a really melancholy time in their life, or they might, like some people, I don't know, this didn't happen to me, but or like you, like some people might associate a really long train journey from moving from their parents' place to uni for the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think I didn't have that. Some people might have that, or some people might be like you and be like, oh, that's just a fucking okay.
Yeah, like I go on the train all the time.
Which it's like I got the train once. It's like It's not like, yeah, no, yeah. Literally, I was just going to carry on. Like another thing, what I just really dig about Train Journey, because I haven't drove, is like I know, like like Gary always goes like, "Fuck it, you have to be there like on exactly the times." I'm like, yeah, no, it's fun though, isn't it? Like there's like, it's like, oh, it's an hour wait to the train. It's like, well, let's do something in that hour then.
Yeah,
I know.
I love having a schedule for a day.
Yeah,
I'm one of those guys. I like being like, okay, well, this time to this time, I'm going to do whatever. And then at this time, I'm going to go do this. Like, I like doing that and planning out my day by the hour.
Yeah.
So I like that. If I book a train at 1 and then it's like 10 or something, and I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to chill until 12, and then 12 till 1, I'll do a bit of writing, and then 1, I'll get in the shower, and then blah, blah, blah. And I like around it sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it's fun. And again, I think it's nice that we get like a Monday scene like that in a children's film, because I want to show my niece, who's like 8, I really want to show her a Ghibli film, purely so because she's of an iPad generation, and it does my head in. She's not patient whatsoever. She's not patient. She gets bored so easily, and I almost want to like go like, right, come with me. We're going to sit and watch this. I didn't want to put it in front of Spirited Away because it's like 2 hours. And I'm like, I might be daunting for but again, animation films these days, the more treated as like distraction. I haven't seen the Trolls films, but I guarantee there's not a moment where one of the fucking Trolls is on a train.
No, there's one where it's like something about having sprinkles on its bum or something.
Oh, magical.
Like because my sister kept quoting it all the time. I think it was like one that like its skin was like a disco ball or whatever. It's not,
But like, I would like, again, I'm saying like one of my things is what like an old Pretty Much It episode was that, and Eric said about how like he said like like people are always like, why can't Pokemon be real? And then he was like and he was just sat like at a park one day, and he just saw like a bird, and he was like, why can't we be happy with this? Like, like it's again, it's a daft like funny thing to say, but it's also like, if you think about it, like, why can't we just be like, there's like a feathered thing that flies that's just always there. Why do we always need, man, I really wish I lived in a fantasy world where all this shit happened. It almost, again, this fantasy world is very enchanting to us and everything, but I love the normal things where it brings it down to like
ground level sort of thing.
Yeah, because it's like there might be a floating spirit, there might be a giant stink spirit that's actually a river spirit or whatever.
Your classics.
The classic things, but also these people, they still need to bathe. They still need to go to sleep. They need it. They still need to take the train. They need to eat still. It's like, it almost like makes that almost feel just as enchanting as all these things. So that, to me, again, this is why I love shit like this as a kid. Like again, some of my favorite things in anime was when again, I loved all the battle stuff, like Dragon Ball, like Goku punching things. But then there were just moments where they were just sat eating. And I loved those things as well, because it almost would make it like, if I was just like if I felt a little bit isolated in primary school and I would be sat eating my packed lunch, I would almost go in my own head where it's like, well, Goku eats as well. Or some bullshit like that. So it's like, I don't know. I think we just need more shit like that in like just general, like making the real world also seem enchanted. Because life is fucking like mental if you think about it in the sense of and people are like, this is boring. It's like, well, why don't you just like look outside?
Yeah, there's stuff going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate messages like that. I'm getting close to the end of my notes, by the way, with it. A little thing about again, Haku being a river. Being a river spirit. I got Bruce Lee's be water philosophy is quite strong here. With Haku being the Kohaku River. We will get more into Bruce Lee very, very soon on the podcast. But obviously, I'm also reading the Bruce Lee book, Be Water, My Friend, which is a book of his daughter writing about her father's teachings and how Be Water he says it, but obviously the Be Water philosophy is more so like it's adaptable. You pour water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You pour into a teapot, it becomes the teapot.
Yeah.
It can find its a leak is so infuriating because the small amount of water can find its way through anything.
Yeah.
For example, it can find its way to destroying PP5.
I get really upset.
I need to slightly explain that for anyone. In our edit suite in uni, there's Premiere Pro 5. And one day I got booked on Premiere Pro 5 to edit my very first module. And then I walk in, the computer's gone, to which I believe it was Connor Lovett turned to me and went, yeah, got water damaged. And then I had to go down to Lee and be like, Lee, I was booked on PP5. He was like, yeah, the leak got that. I went, what? So
there was a leak that specifically started leaking above just one computer.
Yeah. And again, water can find itself everywhere. So I guess like in terms of Haku as a person, again, it sounds weird how we were like at first our initial discussion about it was like, I guess he's a river. I guess he's a river spirit. I guess you look at it in the sense of like, because I mean, he finds himself everywhere, like with Chihiro, doesn't he? Like he turned into a dragon, but he adapted pretty much to a lot of things, I think.
That's just looking for meaning, though, isn't it?
That's me just by coincidence. That's me by coincidence. I'm reading the Bruce Lee book, and I also watch this film. So
yeah,
but yeah,
I would go. It's just weird. It just doesn't make sense.
That's fair. I didn't mind him turning into a dragon as well. Again, I don't need explanation for that. It's pretty cool shit.
Yeah, that stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever, fine.
And this is involving the ending, not like just the overall, like the towards the wrapping up of it. This is me basically finished the film and writing my final little notes down.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This is a film that pisses me off with how good it is. I just get annoyed because it's like I wish like I would have come up with a world like that.
Right.
Because unlike other things, like because Miyazaki has adapted other works, like I think Totoro is a children's book. Spirited Away is not based. It's Hayao Miyazaki's completely original vision. It was written as a film in this state. It's not an original story. It's not like a comic book or a manga he wrote or a book, or it's not a short film. This is the film and he made this world, which I think is a bit of a rarity as well these days.
It doesn't happen often nowadays.
I got a Wizard of Oz for a certain generation, which only occurred to me at the very end because like, oh yeah, it is like just girl gets brought into this world, goes through this world, comes back in the world type of thing. And then and at the very end, my very last note is a film that I truly feel can only achieve the level of greatness it does in animation, which we kind of discussed. Yeah. I wouldn't want this in live action. It'd be awful.
No, it would be horrible.
Be terrifying.
Yes.
Wouldn't be charming.
No.
I wouldn't want it in stop motion either. And I love stop motion as animation form.
But they won't. I don't think there's any way of pulling it off in any other medium than hand-drawn animation as it is done. Yeah. As it exists now.
And there's a last thing that I could say, but I won't go because it's completely different. I'll briefly say it's a small little thing where like obviously the stink spirit isn't a stink spirit, it's a river spirit who's been polluted, which is a big theme I found in Miyazaki films recently. Ponyo has a similar theme with sea pollution, and Princess Mononoke, that's a big theme. It's a big theme of like protecting the planet is a big theme of that. And there's a small hint of that in there, and I wouldn't mind getting to that in another. Because I think we've discussed plenty of what this film could be about and what we get. But I noticed that recently where Miyazaki seems to be very much so someone that is cautious about how we treat our land.
Bit of an environmentalist.
Yeah, and I like how the films aren't about that. Like, we're aware of, I mean, the very first thing that gets pulled out is a bicycle, which is shown as like, oh, that's directly a human-based thing. Obviously, the spirits are very much so, wait, fuck, is that human? So,
and then there's like I think there was a slide in there.
Yeah.
And the last thing is like a fishing line sort of thing.
Yeah, I think he's a filmmaker that really does delve into like, again, obviously we talked about he explores the wonders of real life and how things are quite enchanting. But he's also not afraid to be like, look, we fuck things up as well, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, it's not in your face. It's more so like it's subconsciously like, man, that sucks. And then it's like, and then that just gets you thinking, I think, which I like a lot.
I like that a lot of the film, it throws a lot of stuff at the wall and you can interpret it however you want. I think that's one of its strengths.
Yeah. Well, final brief, any last thoughts that we have on the film before we go into it? Me personally, I love the film. It's one of my favorite animated films. It's not my favorite Ghibli film. And by default, it's not my favorite anime film, but I think I love it as a children's family film. I love it as something more than that as well. And I love it in the sense of like, yes, it isn't this big grand film.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be as well. And I love how we have a film like that. And another thing, we didn't really touch on this. Chihiro could have been annoying, but she isn't.
Yes. Yeah. I thought she was going to be when it first started. And I was worried.
Like, she's a sensible child. She makes mistakes.
Yeah.
But all kids do. Like, she's not perfect, but she's also not an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, like, but she's not stupid.
Like, it's I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you there, Robbie. Last point I will say, and then I'll hand over to you. It's a film that I think is a film that can be shown to anyone of all ages, and someone can get something from it. And I think it's equally as accessible to Westerners, like a Western audience, but also nicely ingrained into the Japanese Eastern culture to where it can be like, oh, that's interesting, but it very is so like that's another thing I like about these types of like Asian films, is that they are so foreign to my form of living, but it's a thing in real world. Like, it's almost very like, wow, that's so interesting and fascinating. It's like, yeah, but that is an actual way of living.
Yeah, it draws you in with stuff that you would think is fantastical, but it's actually just a different way of life that you don't really know much about.
Exactly. I think if I say any more about this, I'll just be repeating myself. I love Spirit. I love it. It's a great film. Not the best animated film. Not my favorite animated film, but but similar to like how, but I can see how someone might say this is the best animated film. For me personally, I can see how that can be held up there. Because again, as I said, it can be really good for kids, but also really good for adults.
Yeah.
Which is a very hard mixture, I think, with animation.
It's a hard thing to pull off, big time. But I mean, generally, I would say if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. I think, I can understand why people love it so much, simply because of kind of that feeling that it creates with its visuals and its sound, and the animation itself is just bellissimo. It's amazing. It's so nice to look at. Like, visually, everything to do with the actual like feeling that the film creates through its filmmaking is very good. It's just the content itself I didn't care for, like what the film's actually about and its characters and the world and everything like that. I didn't care for it, but that's just me. I'm just a guy, all right. I'm just one man. I'm that 3% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, leave me alone. I'm still a guy.
I'll be interested with other Ghibli films, because there's a good thing about Ghibli is they don't just do fantasy films.
Yes, I'd like to see like Princess Mononoke. Because I didn't like Totoro when I watched it either.
I love it, but that's understandable. I can understand it because it is very quirky.
Yes,
in its thing.
I think, I don't know. I'd want to see more to see if there is one that does really kind of connect with me before I just go, oh, I don't like Studio Ghibli films.
I think maybe Princess Mononoke might be a good one, but also it probably would be worth watching other films not by Miyazaki and Ghibli. Like, there's a filmmaker called Isao Takahata, which I love, and my favorite Ghibli film is actually a film by him, and it's a film called Only Yesterday, where it's not a fantasy. It's not a fantasy film at all.
Right. Okay.
Like
cool.
it's very Yasujiro Ozu. It's almost like about this woman in her 20s revisiting a place that she wanted to go as a kid, or I can't remember either. She went as a child, and it deals with flashbacks as well. So think about it like now thinking about it, it's kind of like You're It, but but a lot better. But a lot, it's that type of approach to it. And he also did a film called Grave of the Fireflies, which is very depressing. It's about it's World War II Japan, which is
cool.
so I'll be interested to see one other fantasy films by Ghibli, to see if any other of them like pique your interest, and also the other films that aren't fantasy based.
Yeah.
Because again, as you said, you like the score, you like the animation, you almost liked the aesthetic of it. It's just almost the world itself, kind of like.
Yeah, it just annoys me.
Yeah. Whereas I think like a film that is based in reality might actually be better for you in a sense with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, I'd recommend it. Just wasn't entirely for me.
Which is what this podcast is about.
Yeah. It's all about, baby.
That is our thoughts on Spirited Away. We're not done yet. We are going to then move into some trivia for Spirited Away. Again, I want to say I get all these pieces of trivia from IMDb. So there you go. There's not loads. There's enough here for some interesting stuff. First piece of trivia is, despite having a rich plot with developed characters, Spirited Away was not made with a script. In fact, Miyazaki's films never had scripts. Quote, I don't have the story finished and ready when we start work on a film. The filmmaker told Midnight Eye, quote, I usually don't have the time, so the story develops when I start drawing storyboards. The production starts very soon thereafter, while the storyboards are still developing. Miyazaki does not know where the plot is going, and he lets it happen organically. Quote, it's not me who makes the film makes itself, and I have no choice but to follow.
That's a very nice prospect, but I have no idea how you'd do that. It's a very nice thought, but I have no idea how that is even physically possible.
So from my understanding, he just draws them. Like, in the sense of like, you know, like how Tarantino would start a script and he just writes and he has no idea how it's ended. He's just letting the film go with the script. Yeah. But with Miyazaki, he just draws his films, and then it's like, and then he works around that, I guess, which I guess for a film like this would work considering his animation. So he's almost making it as he's going along.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. In order to animate the scene where Chihiro force feeds Haku the medicine in his dragon form, Hayao Miyazaki had his animators study a dog's mouth as they fed it treats while a veterinarian held its lower jaw.
Nice.
Which I kind of got that like as I was watching it.
Yeah, because there's like the kind of the way the skin with the fur like folds over the mouth and it kind of like lifts up like a dog's does.
Yeah. In little things like that, like just
that little detail is really nice.
Because it could have just had the mouth go open, shut, but like you got like the lip moving, you got like the tongue. It's really cool. The cleansing of the river spirit is based on a real life incident in Hayao Miyazaki's life, in which he participated in the cleaning of a river, removing, among other things, a bicycle. Oh, okay, so
cool.
Yeah. Some of these are going to be a surprise to me because I got these trivia last week, so
all right, okay, cool.
So I mean, oh, that's a surprise to me just there. When Chihiro arrives at Zeneba's house, the jumping lamp with sound effect is a nod to the Pixar logo.
Oh, nice. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. It's not look. Is it Luxor Junior? Is that the lamp?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I can't remember if that was the lamp or the ball.
I can't remember the ball, but yeah. I don't know. Although Hayao Miyazaki had considered retiring after completing Princess Mononoke in 1997, he was inspired to make this film after seeing a friend's sullen 10-year-old daughter.
Oh,
This is interesting. Hayao Miyazaki, I'm just saying, this is a man who retires like a pro wrestler. He doesn't.
he doesn't. He says he does and then comes back.
Yeah. Like he did The Wind Rises, which is the last film he's made, which was 2013. He was like, this is my last film.
Right.
I think then he's kind of gotten around it where it's like, that's my last fully 2D animated film. So he's now like, he's doing hand drawn, but he's also incorporating 3D in it, which
right, okay.
So it's like, so you fucking when you like, which is all like, I read a book called Ikigai, which is like this mentality of like trying to find the thing that makes you happy. And this is why like a person in Japanese culture never truly retires, because they're always doing something. And apparently something was said, apparently like the day after the premiere of Wind Rises. So after Miyazaki was supposedly retired, he was the first one back. He was the first one in the studio just drawing again.
Brilliant.
And like all the animators just laughed. It's like, yeah, all right. So even though he was like, I'm retiring, it's like, yeah, but you're still like going in the studio and just drawing.
Yeah.
It's just funny to me. There are several instances in the English dubbed version where dialogue was added in that was not present in the original Japanese release. In an interview with John Lasseter, because it's a problematic name now, since because Disney were responsible for the international distribution of Ghibli films, and John Lasseter, I think John Lasseter directed the English dubbed versions, so.
Right, okay.
I believe so. In an interview with John Lasseter, he explained that it was a necessary addition to help clarify certain elements for American audiences. For example, what is clearly a bathhouse to a Japanese viewer might not be apparent to an American viewer. So this translation issued was fixed by having the character explain, oh, it's a bathhouse.
Right, okay.
So
that's something I wanted to ask you, actually. There seems to be signs everywhere that say oil on them.
I don't know what exactly that means.
Yeah, what? Yeah, don't get that.
No, I don't know. I know. But yeah, and following on from that, there is a common misconception that the film takes place in a brothel. This is false. Miyazaki made the film targeted towards the demographic of young females. Another quote of the creator that disproves this claim states that he is displeased with how the sex industry has become more geared to include children, which not a good thing at all.
We all, I would say.
Yes, good on you, Miyazaki-san. But yeah, I just find it like, it's like obvious, like watching the Japanese dub, the Japanese version. So it's obviously a fucking bathhouse, but I think that says a lot about a certain section of the world where they see women working in a place amongst naked men.
Yes.
And they instantly assume, oh, a brothel.
It says a lot about the Western world, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas like a bathhouse in Japan is just so fucking it's just so like of its like it just is.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. To do the voice of Chihiro's mother talking while eating, actress Yasuko Sawaguchi actually spoke the dialogue in the original Japanese language version while eating a piece of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Actress Lauren Holly did the same thing in the English version with an apple. Just like fun little, just fun little things. Which I also find that interesting, how like a lot of like almost some of the more important explanation stuff are done when people are eating food, which I guess like I always find it fascinating with how food is used within a film, because obviously we all do it. But I also like how it's like sometimes the only time we all get to speak to each other is when we are sitting down just eating.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
I mean, there's moments where we're doing so much of everything, and the only time we get to actually talk is during lunch.
Yeah, exactly. We don't. Yeah.
So we're sat there eating chips and shit, going like, so yeah, so we've got like fucking 20 minutes before we need to go down to the studio. Shit. first anime film to be nominated and win an Academy Award. It also has the longest runtime of any other film nominated, winning in that category, being at 125 minutes.
Oh, wow. Very good.
I find that interesting in the sense of how when some people think about an animated film and they think, when you go, is it long? And you go, it's 2 hours. You go, oh, that's long for an animated film.
Yeah, because people are used to the kids' films nowadays where it's just an hour and a half, get you in and out.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting where it's like, if we just went to see a film that was 2 hours, like, that's an average length of film.
Yeah.
Or
Or an anime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Supposedly different.
The theme of not looking back is a homage to the Shinto myth of Izanagi. Hang on, I need to break this down. Izanagi. There you go. And Izanami, escaping from the underground world of death, which is very similar to the Greek myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. Many of the characters in this animation are based on Shinto myth and have Shinto gods' names. For example, goodness sake, Oscar. For example, Haku's true name, Nigahami Kohakunushi, is taken from an actual god's name, Nigahayai. So,
oh yeah,
it doesn't necessarily explain things, but it does say that it obviously shows that there's lore in it.
It's directly linked to genuine mythology and all that kind of stuff.
I need to look into all of that stuff.
Yeah.
How's the Odyssey? Have you read any more of that?
I finished the Odyssey.
All right.
It's all right. It's fine. It was interesting to read. An easy read, I would say, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I quite enjoyed it. But yeah, for anyone that's curious about that, I'm quite into my mythology, which is why I've taken time out of my day to read the Odyssey. I'm not just a weirdo. I mean, I am for liking mythology, but there's reasoning.
Is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou an actual adaptation of it?
It isn't
right
at all. I have no idea what that is. Like when people say that, what they're on about.
Well, it's in the film as well. It's like based on the Odyssey by Homer. I'm like, is it?
Yeah, it's not. Having read the Odyssey, nothing to do with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou. From what I can tell, from what I remember from that film.
I wouldn't mind like reading more shit like that. Like,
yeah,
just
cool.
Broaden my knowledge with shit. The voices were looped in after the animation was completed. This is typical procedure for Japanese animation. So, yeah. After his bath by Chihiro, the river spirit rewards her with an enigmatic dumpling. Emetic, not enigmatic, emetic. Emetic is actually an ancient substance that induces vomiting and only was used for people who swallowed poison, or in this movie's case, greedy desires and manipulative agents from the lost spirits. So there you go, Robert.
Oh yeah, cool. So it wasn't like I thought it was.
The character No Face greatly resembles a silkworm, an important animal in Japanese culture. No Face seems to have a white face and a mouth below it. Silkworms have markings that look like facial features, and their mouths are below these markings. Silkworms and No Face eat constantly and grow rapidly. At the end of the movie, No Face goes with Sen to visit Zeniba. No Face stays with Zeniba spinning silk. Oh, okay.
No, I see. Okay.
And the final piece of Jesus Christ. I haven't got a drink with me today, so I haven't been.
Oh, okay.
Right? Yeah. The scene at the end of the film where Chihiro and her parents are walking through the tunnel back to the car is the exact same scene as the one in the beginning of the film, only reversed.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting piece of trivia. More stuff that I think would be beneficial to look more into, again, I think I need to look more into like the specific spirits that
Yeah.
are based on to get a better grasp of it. But I think that's more so for fun as opposed to this is to get a better understanding of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the whole reverse thing, that's quite interesting, that, because I did think while I was watching it, why is she clinging onto her mum's arm again? I thought the whole point was that she's okay with things now.
Yeah.
And then now that you've said that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. It's because it's just the same animation used again. And she clung onto her mum when they went through the first time. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't they do it?
Yeah. That's trivia. Now, the next section is negative Letterboxd reviews.
Oh my God, my favorite section.
We didn't get a Hall of Fame section last time, did we? With Vertigo.
Yeah, Hall of Famer. No.
If you're unfamiliar with this segment, we go through the film social media website Letterboxd, and we go through the film that we've just talked about. We look through the negative reviews, like as in half-star reviews of films that are more traditionally known as really good films. Although I think for Godfather Part 3, didn't we look at both? We looked at
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
because that film sucks. But anyway,
That film is dog. Each version as well. The Coda cut is not any better.
go check out our commentary for the Coda. It's on the channel.
Check it out. I think it's my favorite video we've ever made. I think it's my favorite thing we've ever done.
It might be the anticipation, man, for that throughout the whole. We went through a fucking journey with that film.
We really did. Yeah, the Coda commentary is great.
I wouldn't mind doing more commentaries semi-regularly when we go back to uni, actually, because I think we really could do it.
Yeah, and
like
we'll have to do.
If we do like a Sunday, like because I do fuck all then anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So we could discuss it anyway. But
yeah,
I wouldn't mind doing more commentaries, so stay tuned to that maybe. Right, okay. Half-star reviews for Spirited Away. I'm so curious.
Oh.
Half-star at Dark Soul. This rating is because of you.
Who's Dark Soul?
So his mate, maybe.
Yeah.
But
the backstory on that one.
Half-star hate anime.
Might as well have just been like fuck weebs.
There's a comment. Hang on. Then don't watch it.
Good point. Excellent point.
I mean, it is an anime film. If you hate anime, why are you watching it?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a half-star review that is in Spanish. I'm not doing that.
Do it.
No.
What's Duolingo even for?
I haven't done it yet, Rob. I haven't used Duolingo in so long.
Really excited, isn't it? To learn Italian. I think she's given up on it a little bit.
I did French for a while.
Right.
I wish I got back into it, but one thing I've learned is the French language is relatively easier to learn knowing the English language.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of I think Italian has a lot of the similarities to the French, and yeah. The very first time I started using fucking fly, man, piss off, you tit. I feel like that was quite. I don't know. I don't know how that sounded. That was either very Hartlepoolian or very Southern. That was.
I think it's a bit of both.
That was it.
You had the accent of a Southern man, but the ferocity of a.
It's a good point. That is. But the very first thing I used Duolingo for was try learn Japanese, and oh,
Jesus,
that's throwing me in the deep end.
Yeah,
that's a language that's. Half a star. The day I saw this in theaters was the day the music died.
Bye, Miss American Pie.
There's a comment. What does this say?
If it's not what I just said, I'll be very upset.
I know. It's someone who clearly knows this person that said, can't wait for our Ghibli marathon. Love heart. So
brilliant. Cute. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Half a star. Anime sucks. All in caps.
Don't watch it then. Again. Why are you here?
Half a star. It's a fucking trap. Sad face. I don't think I've ever heard Spirited Away described as such like this. Like it's almost like it tricked you.
Yeah. I think I get it. To be honest, I get what he's saying.
But like, there's people like anime sucks. I hate anime. As if they was like, well, this isn't anime. Like they didn't think it was anime, and then they watched it. I was like, wait, what?
No, not like this. God.
Half a star. Fuck this movie.
Good, excellent.
Yeah, love the right. This one's a little bit lengthy, and by a little bit lengthy, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 lines. So
okay,
half a star. I genuinely have no idea how this film has such a high average rating. It is one of the most boring films I have ever seen, and there is nothing to make up for it. I have gave it half a star just for the effort I'm sure went into the animation. But this is a film I actually hate. I have seen it multiple times, searching for anything that could redeem it for me, but I have hated it more every time.
Oh my God.
You all right, dude?
Is this guy okay?
It's like, I've tried everything and everything.
That was like me with Tenet.
I've
tried so many times to enjoy this.
It is
still bad.
It is as well. Tenet's not good.
Oh God.
And following on from that, half a star. Ass.
Good. Solid. Always an excellent one.
But I just thought, right. I don't get that insult. Ass.
Yeah, that's an ass.
But
is that good or bad?
But I mean,
yeah,
an ass isn't bad.
Yeah, everyone's got an ass. It doesn't mean anything.
I've got something to tell you. It's nothing to do with an ass. I've got something. I've got nothing to do with an ass. I've got something to tell you after this, which I won't say on podcast because it's still very fresh and ongoing.
Okay.
That makes it sound more epic than it is. It's not. Yeah. It's just right. Half a star. I had to listen to my neighbors put this movie on in the background while they banged. After they finished, the guy asked, "Do you think this is Chinese or Japanese?"
Right, that's Hall of Fame, isn't it? That is clearly Hall of Fame. Oh my God. Add it to the t-shirt. That's amazing.
Robbie, that fucking tickled my fancy. That was.
Oh, that's perfect. Nothing's beating that.
It was such like a series of events. First of all, it's like I had to listen to my neighbors put this movie on, so I just thought he's logging it because it was just on, and he just heard it all, and he got pissed off that his neighbor just was blasted, spirited away, and then,
that's because it was to drown out the sound of having sex.
And then the
finale.
Do you think? And then the bloke was like, "Do you think this is Chinese or Japanese?"
Fuck me, that's hilarious.
That's like a whole trifecta. Like it could have just been one of those things, and it would have been Hall of Fame. But
all three together makes it a solid, like a banger.
I need to go through all the ones that we've said Hall of Fame, but that might be the top.
We need to collect them in like a book.
Yeah, yes, we do.
A page for each review, sort of thing.
We do. I've been contemplating like just doing an intermission website for like our own little hub, and then just having a Hall of Fame section where you just look through all the bullshit. But there's 2 more left. We may as well look through them.
Okay, go on.
Half a star. I fucking hate anime. Fuck anyone who thinks this movie look good. It looks like if shit were a movie and I had to watch it. Fuck this boring movie and fuck anime. I mean,
it looks like if shit was a movie. What the fuck does that mean? I think in 5 that's the Emoji Movie in which Sir Patrick Stewart plays a shit.
A literal shit.
Yes, this is good.
And then half a star, final one. This movie scares the shit out of me. There's a comment on this. Hang on. There's a comment that said absolute Chad.
That's Scott.
It wasn't.
Check the username of the reply.
Hang on, was it? Was it Scott? No.
Doug 1002.
No. Right. So we all agree it has to be the fucking.
Is it China? Japanese one.
Congratulations to Nixel.
Yes.
And let's go look. This person's favorite films, decent. You've got the 4 favorite. You got Playtime, which is a Jacques Tati film.
No idea.
You've got the Neon Genesis Evangelion, the end of Evangelion, which is an anime film. Robbie, don't worry about it. Whiplash.
Excellent movie.
I'm not getting it now. And also the film It's Such a Beautiful Day, which is a Don Hertzfeld animated film. So
no idea.
Good shit there. There you go.
Was it Nixel? Did you say
Nixel? Nyxil. Nixel.
Yeah. Well done, Nixel.
Good one. So yeah, there you go. Easily the best. I gotta give that review a like.
Yeah.
Don't agree with the half a star, but I found it because you gave it half a star.
Yes.
And with that being said, that was our whole episode of Spirited Away.
Yes.
Before we go, this is now the outro. I've got a.
We have an outro now.
Well, it's the end bit, as in like, it's the wind down of it.
Okay.
We don't have another section. This is the outro. Do I have it screenshotted? Hang on. First of all, Alison Agar now follows the Intermission podcast on Instagram. Thank you, Alison.
Cheers, Alison.
I don't think you were there. No, on one of the times when we got split off in Teams meetings and stuff in contemporary. And then when Alison was like, "Oh, what did everyone do in lockdown?" I was like, "Oh, me and Robbie started a podcast." And then Johnny Bussell was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then Alison was like, "Yeah, I've seen some of that. Yeah, I listened to the Jurassic Park episode." So,
yes.
So
yeah.
I'm going to need to actually go on our Instagram page for this because we got a message. I'm not sure if you know about this, Robbie.
We got a DM.
We got a DM, right?
Who was it from?
It is from. I need to read that then because Alison DM'd us as well. I haven't read that one yet. So.
Okay. Damn, we've got a fan mail section.
But we got a DM from Sam Clark.
Oh no, it isn't. Why? It's gonna be something so stupid. You prick. Sorry, if he's listened to this, which he won't, because he hasn't seen this movie and he'll have no intention to watch it. You're a knobhead, Sam.
You could just send the outro. You could just send this bit to him.
Yeah.
And he messaged saying, "Do Shawshank Redemption, Green Street, and bend it like Beckham, please."
Sorry. For context, for anyone listening that doesn't know what's just happened, Sam is a very old friend of mine from when we were 4. Like we've been friends for about 16 years, and it's so stupid. I'd love to do Shawshank at some point.
Yes,
we're never fucking touching Green Street or Bend It Like Beckham.
We're definitely not. Shawshank, that might be season 4.
Oh, Green Street, that's so funny.
Imagine if we broke down Bend It Like Beckham.
People know what Green Street is, by the way. Will people know what that is?
What, Green Street?
Yeah.
They know because of Charlie Hunnam, but they won't know anything else.
Elijah Woods is like an American guy, and he comes to stay with his sister in London, and her husband is Charlie Hunnam, and he's like the leader of the football hooligans, which is, you know, the football fans that go around starting fights with people and beating people up or whatever.
Peak of our culture, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and that's then Elijah Wood is him. It's Elijah Wood getting indoctrinated into the West Ham, like football firm that go around beating people up that are fans of different teams, and it's the most hilarious thing you've ever seen in your life. I think the first time we watched that together would have been about 12. Running joke in our friendship group for a long time.
For Shawshank Redemption, possibly.
Yeah, sure. Sam, if we do an episode on Shawshank Redemption, I'll let him know.
I've already
writing again.
I've already got an agenda for a possible season 4, should I say? So
okay, cool. That's so funny.
I will say it includes a Dustin Hoffman film. So there you go.
I'll let J-Dog know.
Yeah, and the message from Alison was from yesterday, and I'll read it to you, Robbie. And it says, hello, hope you're doing well. What's the best email to get Intermission podcast on? I have an opportunity, ... big smiley face. Oh,
that's very interesting, isn't it?
I'm going to have to get back to her and then just send her the Intermission email. So there you go.
We have our own Gmail account.
We do, yes.
That's cool.
Was there someone else I was going to say? No, that was the last bit. I wanted to read that bit and be like, we got a DM from your mate.
That's so funny.
And I knew who it was as well. I was like, okay.
I was going to say, you recognized it because you've met Sam.
Yeah.
It's out a few times.
It's how polite he was as well. Please. At the end, it wasn't like, do this. It was like, do Shawshank Redemption, Green Street, and Bend It Like Beckham, please.
We're never doing Bend It Like Beckham.
No.
Ever.
No.
I don't care.
And on that note, Robbie, we may as well wrap up this episode of Spirited Away. This has been a very enjoyable one. I've liked this one a lot.
Yeah, I've enjoyed myself.
The next week's episode is the theme that I gave Robbie chose. He chose martial arts. He chose the genre of martial arts, a genre we haven't delved into within this. So we are sticking with the Eastern culture so far. If you look at if you look at our itinerary, Robbie, there's a lot of Eastern based films within this season. And next week we are going to be going into the 1972 Bruce Lee film, The Way of the Dragon, it also had a name, Return of the Dragon. Films got renamed back then.
It's a whole thing. It'll be in the trivia section. Don't worry about it.
Did you know, what was it? The Big Boss, his first film that he starred in. In America, it got called The Chinese Connection. Don't know. Right. And then, was that Fist of Fury? I can't remember. Oh, no, I can't remember. No. There was one film that had a rename of Fists of Fury, but then Fist of Fury came out and Fist of Fury was called something else.
Oh, right, okay.
So in America, Fist of Fury wasn't Fist of Fury.
Oh, okay.
But we don't need to worry about that because Way of the Dragon, if you're searching for it, it is just Return of the Dragon as well. It's the one with Chuck Norris in it. That's the one we'll break, which I'll be very interested of how we're even going to break that down. That'll be the first time.
It should line up quite nicely with Shang-Chi coming out.
It should, yeah. Next week? Yeah, it would do. Yeah.
Friday, I think next Friday.
Yeah, yeah. And we're releasing that on the Saturday. So
that'll line up quite nicely. And I think I'll probably put a review up on the channel for Shang-Chi.
Cool.
When I see that, because I'll be seeing that either the day it comes out or the 7th, probably.
I'm seeing on the 7th. I'm seeing on Sunday.
Yeah, so a review will be up on the channel at some point.
So unintentionally, the next few weeks of Intermission are going to be very Asian based. So it fits in well with Shang-Chi as well.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, I didn't mean for this to happen, but of course I've made this happen.
Brilliant.
But thank you all for watching. Links are in the description below for Instagram and Letterboxd for all things Intermission, all that. If you're on YouTube, check out the podcast feed. If you're listening to us on any of the podcasts, and check us out on YouTube, because also we release other things on the YouTube channel. As I said, I did a marathon of Hirokazu Koreeda. I've recently filmed another marathon for another filmmaker, which wait for that I'll get to. I'll drop a little hint. we're speaking about Shang-Chi, Tony Leung is a big theme within this marathon that I've just done. So
Ooh.
there you go. Anything you want to plug, Robbie?
That charity football game. When this comes out, which is tomorrow, this will be coming out. So for anyone listening on the day that this comes out, tomorrow I'm playing a charity football game for the charity Mind. So any donations to Mind are greatly appreciated. Please do that. That'd be great. Thank you.
Links in the description below to donate to Mind, and also throughout this entire season, I'll just leave the link in the description to be donating to Mind. It is definitely a charity that is heavily supported within the Intermission family.
Yes. If there's any specific link that you need for donating to the specific thing that I'm doing, I don't think there will be, but if there is, then we'll put that in the description. But I imagine it will just donate to Mind if you can.
If it is, ping it over to me and then we can sort it out. So till next time, everybody, we shall see you next week for Way of the Dragon, and bye-bye.
Bye.